Good morning, and welcome to the Thursday Talk series on socio-political and economic perspectives of the Capability Building on Innovative Leadership for Legislative Staff program. I am Nina Raffer from the Development Academy of the Philippines Center for Governance, and I am pleased to be your host for today's lecture. To formally start our program, may we ask everyone to please stand and pay courtesy to our flag with the singing of our national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, pelos ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, buyan ka ng magiging, sa manlulupi, kita masisingil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo bangag, ay nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang tinamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y nagumpay na nakikinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang-alit magdidilig. Lupa ng araw ng maraming pagsita, buhay langit sa likod. Aming ligaya dapat may mamagin, at namatay ng dahil sa'yo.
You may now take your seats. I hope everyone is looking forward to the second offering of our CBILLS Thursday Talks series for this year. We are thrilled to welcome you all to our home institution, of course, the DAP Pasig. This event also marks the first lecture of the Thursday Talks to be streamed on the DAP's official YouTube channel. And now, before we proceed to today's program, allow me to recognize our resource persons and distinguished guests who are here with us today. First, we have Dr. Maria Victoria Raquiza, Associate Professor of the UP National College of Public Administration and Governance. We have Mr. Rolando Toledo, Assistant Secretary for Local Government and Regional Operations Group of the Department of Budget and Management. We have Ms. Jennifer Andrea Imperial, Chief Administrative Officer of the Project Management Office of the Commission on Audit. We have Mr. Sandino Soliman, Executive Director of Caucus of Development NGO Networks, or CODE NGO. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of the following. From the House of Representatives, we have Dr. Edgardo Pangilinan, Deputy Secretary General for Administrative Department. We also have Mr. Novel Bangsal, Executive Director of the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department. We have Ms. Noreen Gonzaga, President, Association of Chiefs of Staff. And of course, we would like to recognize our scholars from the Philippine Congress who are here with us at the DAP Pasig. From the Appropriations and Finance Group, we have our emerging leaders and our managers. From the regular track, we have representatives from the emerging leaders, middle managers, and of course, our senior leaders. Last but not the least, those tuning in from our DAP YouTube channel, good morning everyone. To properly introduce our program, let me briefly review the theme of our lecture series and the first installment of the Thursday Talks. For 2024, as you may know, the theme of the lecture series is Anchoring Sustainable Philippine Development in the Pillars of Innovative and Participatory Governance. It highlights the critical role of innovation in fortifying government efficiency, transparency, and accountability toward a more transformative and inclusive policymaking to promote resilient and sustainable future for the Filipinos. The first installment of the series, held last April at the House of Representatives, introduced the interconnection between the Philippine political institutions and sustainable development through the lens of good governance and public accountability. It emphasized the importance of the rule of law, transparency, and participatory governance in fostering citizen trust and public accountability in order to strengthen democratic institutions that leave no one behind. With that, we move on to today's lecture, which aims to deepen our understanding of public accountability in the context of the country's fiscal processes. At this point, I would like to introduce our today's moderator who will help us facilitate the lecture discussion. Our moderator currently holds the position of Executive Director of the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department, or CPBRD, under which he oversees and supervises the Budget and Tax Research Bureau. He finished his MA in Development Economics from UP School of Economics and MA in Public Administration from UP NCPAG. He also earned his diploma in Public Management Program, Senior Executive Class with honors at this institution, the Development Academy of the Philippines, in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Executive Director Novel Bangsal.
Thank you, Nina. Nice to see very familiar faces, and I'm very happy to be here with you guys. And hopefully, we will have a very fruitful and constructive discussion later on. But let me just start by saying that I'm very pleased to welcome you all into this discussion on a relevant and timely topic that resonates with many of the scholars present today at the AP. First, let us watch a short video for an overview of today's lecture.
When we think about citizen participation, we think about elections. But participation should not be confined to a box. Rather, engaging in public accountability processes empowers ordinary citizens to get involved. Public officials then have a duty to widen avenues for participation through improving bureaucratic efficiency, practicing good governance, and building trust. However, public accountability takes a lot of work, from policymaking, budget and monitoring processes, to implementation of government programs. This requires probing deeper into modes of participation where integrity, transparency, and accountability in government form the primary concern of the citizenry. Join the conversation and catch the second lecture of the 2024 CBILLS Thursday Talk series on June 13, live via the DAP YouTube channel.
I hope that through that video you had a fairly good idea of what we will be discussing this morning. This second lecture of the Thursday Talks aims to probe deeper into the modes of citizen participation beyond elections, where integrity, transparency, and accountability in government form the primary concern of the citizenry. Specifically, at the end of the lecture, we hope that you, the CBILLS scholars, and our DAP YouTube viewers will be able to, one, describe our citizen participation, how citizen participation can bolster government accountability, specifically fiscal transparency, to identify challenges and opportunities for citizens' participation in budget management and public audit processes. And last, explore possible public agendas to help promote citizen participation in strengthening transparency and public trust in government processes and institutions. Our discussion today will touch on some of the principal programs and strategies being implemented to promote fiscal transparency, as well as possible public policy agendas to encourage citizen participation in strengthening government accountability. And just to provide more context in this discussion, and in fact, Yusek Rolly has been reminding me of this. Let me just note that in the latest Open Budget Survey, this 2023, the Philippines was ranked number 1 in budget transparency in Asia and 15th worldwide. So I think DBM and COA, of course, deserve some round of applause. And that's not all. We were also ranked 6 in the world for budget oversight. So also kudos to House of Representatives and the Senate of the Philippines. And 13th for public participation. So I hope that with that in mind, we will be more inspired to provide more fruitful discussion in today's forum. So we have with us distinguished resource persons to help us meet these lecture objectives. Without much further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. She is an associate professor of the National College of Public Administration and Governance, UP Diliman. She received her MA degree in Development Studies from the Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, Netherlands, where her thesis garnered a distinction award. Her PhD degree was obtained from the City University of Hong Kong. She is a co-convener of Social Watch Philippines, an NGO advocating poverty eradication and community-centered sustainable development, and a research core team member of the Graduate School of Public and Development Management Development Academy of the Philippines. Please, let us all welcome on stage Dr. Maria Victoria Raquiza. Ma'am.
Maraming salamat, Novel. And congrats sa mga oversight and DBM executive natin. At ang ganda naman ng ranking natin sa region and in the world, diba? But today, this morning, I was tasked to talk about, ways by which we can further enhance citizens' participation in the good work that our government is already doing. And in particular, my topic has to do with people in the state exploring the participatory budgeting aspect of governance. And hopefully with Dino from Code NGO, pwede natin pagtulungan, paano natin i-broaden yung spaces for more engagement with ordinary Filipinos. Parang it's not working. I have to turn it on. So my talk will basically cover these points. I'll just to set the introductory, ano ba yung konteksto ngayon? So a bit about the post-pandemic context. And then I want to anchor the discussion on SDG 16, promoting effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions. And under that, we have specific themes around public trust. Napakahalaga yung usapin ng public trust because we keep saying transparency and accountability. Pero bakit mahalaga ang transparency and accountability? Because ultimately, it's about paano tayo magtitiwala kung hindi ka accountable, kung hindi ka transparent. So ang foundation ng accountability and transparency has to do with trust. No? Di ba nandun yan sa Ambition 2040? One of our long-term goals is to build a high-trust society. And then I'll spend some time around fiscal transparency, accountability. And then I want to highlight two features na pinag-uusapan ngayon on what good governance means. And that has to do with the notion of representative bureaucracy, as well as intersectionality in public policy making. And then finally, I want to end with what are the factors that determine social spending. And I think this is important because in the context when we need to, enhance, for example, budgets for public health and public education, we're also confronted oftentimes with the notion that there is fiscal constraints. no? So let's talk about that, no? And then finally, citizens' participation in participatory budgeting, a bit about what has been the experience around that by various organizations. So with that, there's something wrong. Parang hindi, I'm not strong enough. Hindi nagwo-work. Can you na lang? Sige, thank you. Yan. So ito yung current post-pandemic landscape. Alam natin that the COVID-19 pandemic laid bare systemic weaknesses. Nakita natin overnight nag-lockdown. And we saw some of these systemic weaknesses that plagued our economic and social systems. Not just now, but across generations. It has to do with weakness in our public healthcare system, in our educational system, transportation system, employment and livelihood systems, especially for our informal sector workers. Okay lang sana kung we're regular employees in the formal sector, kahit hindi tayo pumapasok, meron tayong sweldo. But there are estimates that say that a low of 30 to a high of 80% of our labor force are in the informal sector. And once they're not able to go out to, ito yung mga isang kait, isang tuka, if they're not able to go out to work, they're not able to eat 3 times a day. So we got, in a way, not just the Philippines, but countries around the world, we got caught flat-footed, no? When the pandemic struck and there was the lockdowns that occurred. So this really, and what is the lesson that we can learn from COVID-19 experience? One important lesson is how important pala, no? Yung care as essential and critical. How important, accessible, affordable, equitable, and quality social services, including social protection. Ito talaga yung, kasi it speaks to the very needs of ordinary Filipinos, no? We also noticed that during the COVID-19 pandemic, while nandun naman yung boses at participation ng mga CSOs, medyo muted. Diba ang overarching parang governance mechanism was the IATF, yung Interagency Task Force on COVID. May ilang NGO reps, but we felt that because many of us were engaging that process, may mga position papers and all, parang muted, no? But we can understand it was under emergency conditions, so other sectors played a premium role. Pero yung mga citizens sa mga barangay, mga CSOs, we were hoping to influence that more, and that's something that we can work on moving forward. Next. So I want to talk about SDG 16 kasi ito naman talaga ang gusto natin. The Philippine government is a signatory to the SDG, and ito yung pinaglaban natin, no? Is to have peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And then napaka-importante dito na we know that government cannot do it alone. So the other actors come in, civil society, social movements, business groups, consumers groups, media, to provide and complement the work of what government does, no? And then I want to highlight that strengthening relationships between governments and society requires a commitment from all actors. Pero napakalaga yung role ng government because they are the ones that really lay the groundwork and strive to earn trust. Government has the mandate and the resources, no, to provide and support many for our needs. Siyempre hindi lahat, pero other actors come in, but they are not a substitute for the state. Next. So trust between the government and its people is at the heart of good governance. So when we talk about trust, we talk about trust in institutions and leaders. And we just heard from Nobel that napakataas pala ng ranking natin. That shows that there is high level of trust, no? In what our our managers are doing and what our institutions are doing, no? And we saw how important trust was during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. When public compliance, for example, with policy measures, no, were even a matter of life and death. And we saw in countries like the Philippines and many countries in Asia, pag sinabing mag-mask, pag sinabing social distancing, ginagawa natin yan. Because we believe in the government. We believe that the government knows what they're doing, what it's doing. And we believe in the notion of collective rights, the right of the community to protect itself. And if you saw that, many of us saw in social media and in our TV, in the West, we saw how many groups, many individuals felt that the government telling them to wear masks, to do social distancing and all that, was an imposition of their individual rights. Because iba ang policy orientation and philosophical orientation nila. Mas individualistic sila. And they felt that, wearing the orders to wear masks, diba, were impositions of the state. So it's a different philosophical and policy orientation. In many countries in Asia, including the Philippines, we tend to have a more benevolent look at the role of the state. And we believe in communities, in families, protecting each other, that level of solidarity. No? And I think that's something that we should identify and value. So what I also want to highlight here is that the trust that we talk about is a two-way street. We have a people trusting in government, but we also see the government trusting in its people. Sige, next. And here, sige, next. And here, we talk about transparency and accountability. Dito nagiging talagang napakahalaga. So when we talk about transparency, it's about government keeping the public apprised of the role and actions of government by regularly providing access to reliable information. And when I say access, we mean easy access to government information, because this also democratizes processes. So issues around right to information, diba? Access to public information, not just for us, many of us are part of the intellectual, educated elite, but many of our brothers and sisters from economically and socially disadvantaged groups, especially in the far-flung areas, how do we promote access to information? No? So these are some of the issues that we need to tackle. Next. So let's talk about fiscal transparency. And here we rely on the IMF discourse around fiscal transparency. It talks about making public governments fiscal policy making processes. No? And they talk about a couple of principles that guide. When do we say it's fiscally transparent? If it is clear. This means there is ease with which reports can be understood by users. Minsan tinitignan namin sa budget monitoring natin, i-download natin yung mga documents, and sometimes, many of the users, we don't know how to make sense of the data sometimes. So making sure that the data is presented in a clear way is what we mean by, it's a component of fiscal transparency. Reliability is the extent to which reports are accurate representation of a government's fiscal operations and finance. And then how frequent, and regular are the reports provided and published. Next. Timely, So we're looking at time lagged involved, and then relevance. The extent of information provided to legislatures, citizens, and markets in order to make effective decisions. So napakalaga na the relevant data is provided so that we can make the kinds of decisions that need to happen. And then napakalaga ditong huling to, yung openness, refers to the ease with which the public can find the information in order to influence and hold governments accountable for the fiscal decisions that they make. Ang hirap to hold our public officials accountable kung wala naman tayong datos na makuha. Or meron nga, pero hindi natin alam paano basahin kasi may, the numbers aren't clear, it's a little too technical. So some of these things, no? Next. So this is like the theory of change, no? From fiscal transparency to policy impact. So basically, I can't see it. Is there a mic? I need to go near. There's the mic. Hello? Yeah, thank you. So sa baba is fiscal transparency. So it starts with public disclosure of high-quality fiscal data and information on budgets, forecast, etc. So may fiscal transparency tayo. And then once the data and all that information is available, the public now can come in to engage and participate, no? And hold discussions in terms of the design, implementation, monitoring, evaluation of these fiscal decisions that have been made. And then the next level is accountability. Public officials are held effectively to account for the stewardship of public accounts, of public resources, rather. And then finally, because there is this healthy interaction between citizens and government officials, no? Then you have fair, efficient, and effective fiscal outcomes. And as a result, no, we have improved social and economic developmental outcomes, like better health, better education outcomes, and all that, because we see that our resources are managed well, are spent well, because government and citizens are working together to make sure this happens. So this is the theory of change from fiscal transparency to policy impact. Next. So accountability, what's this naman? Basically, it's an obligation, no? Where the work that was performed, we have to make sure, no, that the work that was delivered is in accordance with the agreed rules and standards that were set. It's about fair and accurate performance results that is in consonance with assigned rules and plans that were worked out. It's about, making sure that we have strengthened oversight institutions. No? Congress and COA, no, are really our premier oversight bodies. So we have to make sure that they're well-trained and well-resourced and insulated from vested interests. I heard that sometimes they eat death threats for breakfasts. And it's true. We have, I have to say, this is true. Ang galing ng mga findings ng COA. To be able to say what they say, bato-bato sa langit, sino magalit, they say it. And there's empirical rigor, and they say it, and it takes courage, but they do it anyway. It's part of a good day's work. So kudos to COA. And then these are other forms of helping government to be accountable. I don't know kung buhay pa tong 8888 na to. Buhay pa ba to? I'm sorry if I'm asking it so. Is it? Yes. Because, I had an advisee before. She was with SSS Sulu. And she was telling me, yung mga Sulu, takot sa 888. In other words, I saw that it was keeping our institutions on their toes. So if this is still ongoing, that's great. That's fantastic. The Citizens Complaint Hotline. I don't know why we haven't, in NCPAG, we don't talk about this. We should. We should have an assessment on the effectiveness of 888. And if it's doing its work, we should strengthen it, no? And then, of course, from the side of civil society and social movements, including people's organizations, we come out with all kinds of accountability mechanisms. We do people's reports, people's scorecards, may citizens' debt audit, may budget watchdog, social audits, expenditure tracking, lobbying, petitioning, even rallying. Yung mga rally sa labas ng Congress, let's welcome that. Hindi madali mag-rally. I always tell this to my students. It's sa ilalim ng init ng araw, and then you have to invite all these people. And these are people who work, isang kahig, isang toka, many of them. They have to not go to work that day because they want to express, a sentiment. So I think as government officials, it's part of our duty not to be balat sibuyas, di ba? It's part of the work. It's part of the work, no? And we should welcome that. These are forms of collective action organized by the various citizens groups. Next. Now I want to talk about representative democracy. This is now parang parts of the latest ideas around good institutions. So the question is, whose attitudes, values, opinions, and interests do policymakers and bureaucrats promote? Do all branches of government represent the diversity of its constituents in terms of socioeconomic status, ethnicity, gender, sex orientation, religion, disabilities, and other dimensions? There is one study that was conducted, not in the Philippines, outside, they saw when they did a study of the bureaucracy that it was those with elite backgrounds who are the decision makers, while the implementers came from the socially disadvantaged economic sectors. So this is important because basically it will tell us that sometimes some of the decisions are elite-oriented, no? Or middle-class oriented, which may not always benefit the poorer sections of our people. Why? Because the decision makers come from that background. So it's important to have a diverse bureaucracy. Next. So this is another thing, intersectionality and public policy. It's a framework for understanding interlocking systems of oppression. So for example, persons with disabilities, many of them are unemployed and therefore are poor. So they're not persons with disabilities lang, or poor lang, or unemployed lang. They tend to interlock, no? So it's so important that when we do our policy analysis, we ask, whose experiences are at the center of the policy analysis? How does intersectionality-informed analysis incorporate the voices of marginalized groups? How does the analysis promote not only about efficiency and effectiveness, but we should bring into the discourse equity in public administration today? Equity is seen as a foundational anchor because we ask, efficiency for whom? Effectiveness for whom? No? Even Alex Brillantes will ask, public administration for whom? Good governance for whom? Diba? So next. So this is what a famous quote from this woman, Audre Lorde, says. There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. Next. So what are some of the factors that determine social spending? We know that oftentimes fiscal constraints is invoked. And that's very true, especially in the post-pandemic era. Because of the pandemic, not just the Philippines, but around the world, fiscal space has really dramatically been reduced. So while this is true, studies also show that the policy framework of government matters. Studies show that while creating fiscal space for social spending, like education, health, social protection, is also largely determined by a country's policy orientation or framework or their policy regime. In other words, if your lawmakers are generally fiscally conservative, they tend to overemphasize the cost effectiveness of policies. How much will it cost? No? Baka naman ganyan. But, next. On the other hand, more developmentally minded policymakers don't see spending for education and health as costs, but they see it as social investments, which can generate multiple positive impacts, from reducing poverty and income security in the short term to enhancing the country's productivity and capacity for innovation in the long term. And in the post-war era, World War II era, this is the story of the miracle economies. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore all started as ruined, after World War II. But they were countries in a hurry because in order to survive, they looked to the West and said, if we are to survive, we will compete with first world countries. So what did they do? They put their workforce, their labor force to work. They needed to revive their economies, and they wanted to industrialize and modernize so that within a generation, within what the first world countries achieved in 50 years to 100 years, these miracle economies achieved within a generation. No? And they did that because they invested in their labor force. They could not afford an idle labor force. They had to make sure productive sila because they had an economy to build, agriculture, services, and industry. And they went up the value chain. No? And to be able to go up the value chain, you need a highly educated and skilled workforce. They needed to be healthy. They needed to have good houses because you have to create the environment, no? So they invested. This is called productivist social policy. They didn't even do it for rights, political rights, economic. They didn't even do it. They did it because they needed a productive workforce. So it makes sense to invest in our workforce, in our people, because ultimately it will redound, no, to all of these things that has been mentioned. So in other words, financing policy, social policies, is not only a matter of fiscal space. Ultimately, it's about our vision for society, our vision for where do we want to be 30 years from now. It's about our values, our mindsets, and ultimately about political will, because we're talking about public investments, we're talking about resources. Next. So for example, this is this isn't really dated, but just to show that, it's not always just national income that determines the extent of public spending. Sweden was spending 30% of its GDP on social services, while the United States, with higher levels of GDP, only spends 16% for social spending. This is because Sweden is a welfare state. Their orientation is more developmental, right? So they saw that this wasn't a cost. It's an investment for us to stay and get to where we want to go. And then in the Philippines, many countries with lower levels of GDP than the Philippines spend for universal pensions. We're talking Bolivia, Lesotho, Namibia. They have universal social pensions. No? So it starts with developmental ambition. Hindi pa natin kaya, pero may ambition ba tayo? Where do we want to be 30, 40 years from now? And then, if that's where we want to go, through purposeful and deliberate action, let us build state capacity. Let us build our fiscal resources. Let us build our administrative resources. Let us build our technical competence. So we get from point A to point F eventually. It will not happen overnight. But it's got to start somewhere. And through the progressive realization, we are able to slowly but surely meet our goals. But we need to invest in the state. We need to build our capacities, right? Next. So when we talk about citizens' participation, we talk about citizens directly interacting with public authorities in the design, implementation, and review of fiscal policies, no? Any form of communication. Active citizens' involvement in the executive and the legislative decision-making processes. And why is this important? Because those decisions will affect people's lives. So these are the groups who are wanting to engage and have engaged. Next. So why should citizens participate in the budget process? First of all, a lot of the funds, most of the funds come from the people, either through direct or indirect taxes. Not all, but a significant part, no? It is guaranteed in the Constitution. Government is a duty bearer, and the citizens have a right to claim. No? Rights-based approach to development. And then learning the lessons from COVID-19 pandemic, we know that it's about time we address the systemic weaknesses and prioritize spending for public health, education, food, livelihoods. These are the themes that matter most to ordinary Filipinos. And we know that budgets are the clearest expression of government priorities. And government commitments and promises have less meaning if these are not translated into adequately budgeted PPAs. Next. Studies show that when organizations of the poor and socially excluded are able to influence public policy making, if the poor and socially marginalized have a seat in the table, nakakapasok sila, they're sitting with us in the table, making decisions, outcomes tend to be more successful in reducing poverty and inequality. In other words, policies and programs tend to be more redistributive. Alternatively, technocratic style of policy making, where economic policies are insulated from public scrutiny and limited to so-called technical experts, basically, it prevents ordinary citizens from engaging this process. Kasi masyadong, in a sense, they call it technocratized. And they leave it to so-called experts. But this is something that we need to think about. When we talk about issues around poverty, hunger, etc., wouldn't we say that the poor are also experts? Because it's part of their lived experience. And it's, we have to talk about what is knowledge. And that's a whole new thing. But it's really respect for the lived experience of the different groups. Next. So citizens' collective action, whether through voting, bargaining, claim-making, like lobbying, and direct political action, rallies, other forms of mobilizations, these are important. Why? Because they help generate shifts in political power so that politicians are compelled to respond to social needs. Many of our rights that we have won in relation to labor laws, in relation to maternity rights, in relation to teachers' rights, na ipanalo naman natin kasi may public pressure from below, and then we had progressive, we had enlightened, we had right-minded policymakers who believed in that as well. So that partnership made a difference. So studies show that when this happens, development outcomes tend to be more pro-poor and social inequality is reduced. Next. So I'll talk about yung participatory budgeting. Around the world, in some places, this happens. It bumutok to sa Porto Alegre, Brazil. And then Social Watch Philippines, which is an organization I'm part of, we organized the ABI in 2006. We assessed the national budget, and we made proposals to make the budget more responsive. Next. So what we did was that we tried to develop ourselves. And malaking bagay kasi ang lead convener namin at the time was Professor Leonor Briones, who was with COA once, who was with NCPAG, she's a professor emeritus, and then she was also with, she was head of Freedom from Debt Coalition. So parang she straddled different domains. So she taught this ragtag group of CSOs, how to read the budget. It's very technical. She taught us how to read the budget, how to dress up in Congress, lahat. How to engage, how to present. Next. And then we had policy proposals to increase spending in this area and that, and we looked for legislators to champion. So we worked with policymakers and legislators who championed some of the budget proposals we wanted passed, And these are some of them in Congress. Next. And then during this time, this was in 2008 when Ed Selwagman was still chair of the Commissions on Appropriations, they even allowed CSOs to present their budget proposals. Next. And these were some of what we call gains in the partnership with government, with policymakers. We were able to help push 500 million sa agri, persons with disabilities got 2-point-something million, health, etc. So we were very happy with this line item budgets na nagkaroon ng increases in spending. Kasi napakaganda din ng naging partnership with legislators. And the executive, we worked with with DOH, with DepEd, nagtulungan talaga dito. Kasi gusto din nila to We worked with them, we met with them, we strategized with them. Next. And such that, in 2007, nagkaroon ng resolution allowing bona fide people's org in public hearings. It was filed by Senator Lacson. Next. And then sabi pa nga ni Edsel, we have broken tradition, meaning the Appropriations Committee in Congress at the time, by allowing people's orgs and NGOs to take part in public hearings in the GAA. And then, because at the time, invite Social Watch and FDC to present an alternative budget and took note of their recommendations. Next. Sabi niya, the traditional practice of solely limiting budget briefings and hearings to heads and representatives of government departments and agencies is an incomplete process. The people who are the ultimate beneficiaries of sufficient budget allocations or the casualties of bigger or absent allotments should be given the opportunity to be heard through their non-elective and alternative representatives in the PO and NGO community. Next. And you know, every year thereafter, 2008, 2009, every year we have legislator champions who have filed a bill. In the Senate, it was, hindi lang si Joel, Senator Joel lang to. I'm just putting him here as an example. There are other senators, 2-3 others, who filed a similar bill, an act institutionalizing the participation of CSOs in the preparation and authorization process of the annual budget. No? Next. Sa House, ganun din. Si Honorable Christopher De Venecia filed a similar bill. The question is, hindi na ipapasa. Year in and year out. So this is my challenge to all of us, especially our colleagues in the House and the Senate. Maybe we can, because there will, I am sure that in the next Congress, new bills will be filed to institutionalize citizens' participation in budget making. Maybe this is something that we can explore working together around. Next. So what are some of the things that we've worked with some of these legislators, and we have tried to basically express to them some of the things that we are pushing for from a citizen-centric perspective. One is to make sure that when the bill is framed and eventually enacted, I'm being very optimistic, to make sure that we remove provisions that excessively technocratize or restrict participation of CSOs by asking burdensome eligibility and accreditation requirements. Many people's organizations, medyo financially challenged, no? And to require duly audited financial statements can be seen as a structural barrier, if you like. Invite CSOs and POs as observers. Sir, pa-cute ako sa inyo. But in fairness, si Sir Toledo has been, he is our darling. Because he's been, no, and it's true, sir. Ito yung easy access. So during DBM technical budget hearings, budget documents should have persons with disability accessible formats. In fact, there is a DICT memorandum circular already on this. So we would, sana may mas madami ang compliance. Next. CSOs and POs to be invited as resource persons during budget hearings. Non-accredited CSOs and POs to be allowed to present their position papers or budget proposals during a hearing day allotted for the presentation of positions and papers, no, of accredited CSOs. So we're requesting that may araw during the budget process na whole day devoted to CSOs and POs presenting their position papers. And then yung number 6 is a little challenging, but we think it's very, very important in the promotion of accountability, transparency, and trust. We are calling for the opening up of the bicameral conference committee deliberations to the public. There we are, hearing 1, nandiyan kami, nakaabantay. Hearing 2, nandiyan kami, okay, nakapasok. Hearing 3, okay pa rin. Pag bicam, mag-iiba yung kwento. And it's a very opaque process. There are no minutes of the meetings. We don't know, nag-iiba na yung outcome. So we have been calling for open BICAM conference committee deliberations, and that CSOs and POs be invited as observers and even resource persons if need be during what we hope will be open bicameral committee sessions. Next. And then if there are changes, no, in the ratified BICAM report, malinaw who proposed the change. It should be part of the access, no, in the bicameral report. And then we're also pushing for penal provisions on non-accreditation, inaction on the accreditation application, or if CSOs and POs are prevented from meaningfully participating. And then sana may citizens, I'm sure you're already doing this. Yeah, so we haven't been active there, so we want to learn more about it as well. And then, next. So final words in sum, a government's budget is the most important economic policy and planning document, as it is an essential means by which to assess government's efforts to achieve its outcomes. When public budgets reflect the perspectives of civil society and grassroots organizations with more people and planner-centered PPAs, this helps close the gap between rhetoric and reality and helps us to further push the goals of democracy and human rights. I end with that. Thank you very much.
Very short to put some context dun sa presentation din ma'am. I think it's very important really to be able to identify entry points for citizen participation in the various budget cycle. That be in the budget preparation, budget legislation appropriation, budget execution, and accountability. So I'm very sure that our participants later on may be able to help us identify and provide some feedback on how to, set a more formal mechanism of doing these things. So on that note, for those who are tuning in through the DAP YouTube live, you may post your questions below the live stream of this lecture. One of the CBILLS staff will consolidate questions for the open forum later. Now, we will be taking a 10-minute break before proceeding to the next set of speakers. So, let's have a break.
So good morning again. Kindly settle down and we will resume in a short while. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back to the second Thursday Talks. So for the scholars who are here at the Verata Hall of the DAP Pasig, as early as now, you can send in your questions to our resource persons via the QR code found on your table or through the link sent by your learning managers on your Viber communities. And now, I would like to call on again ED Bangsal for the next session of the lecture. ED Bangsal?
Thank you, Nina. Please allow me to introduce our next set of speakers who will share case studies that highlight citizen participation in fiscal processes. Our next speaker, I think, is no stranger to us. He is Assistant Secretary Rolly Toledo of the Local Government and Regional Operations Group of the DBM. As Assistant Secretary, he assists the supervision of the Local Government and Regional Coordination Bureau and Department's regional offices. He concurrently serves as co-chair of the Budget Preparation Task Force of the FY 2025 proposed budget. So, Sir Rodi, prepare for the questions. Assistant Secretary Rolly concurrently supervises the operations of the Philippine Open Government Partnership, Project Management Office, and the lead steward of the Global Initiative for Fiscal Transparency, or GIF. Our next speaker, I will also be introducing our next speaker. Our third speaker is Ms. Jennifer Imperial, the Chief Administrative Officer of the Project Management Office of the Office of the Chairperson of COA, where he supervises the activities under the Citizen Participatory Audit Program. In her 25 years in the government, she gained experience on the administrative supervision and support, legal research and services, as well as project management. She also managed the Commission's special projects with various development partners, such as the Philippine Performance Partnership Project, with USAID, external audits of locally funded projects by UNDP, external audits of locally funded projects by UNICEF. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Assistant Secretary Rolly Toledo, and to be followed by Ms. Jennifer Imperial. Sir Rolly, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Novel Bangsal, may kababayan. Okay. So, good morning to everyone. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. I'm so familiar phrases, both from the Congress and the Senate. So, bear with me as will present to you about the opportunities for citizens' participation in fiscal openness through Philippine Open Government Partnership or PHOGP in short. Yan po yung aming tagline as far as PHOG, open governance. At the same time, we even have our what we call OGP NAS. Later you will see or know about this. So basically, my presentation will has 5 parts. First part will be the what is all about Philippine Open Government Partnership or the PHOGP. Then the co-creation process as far as the PHOGP National Action Plan, and what have we accomplished so far as in terms of good governance, and how did we came about or institutionalizing the PHOGP, and of course, beyond what we are doing beyond the National Action Plan. Okay. Now, the Philippine Open Government Partnership or the PHOGP. Now, the Open Government Partnership or OGP was formally launched on September 20, 2011, when the 8 founding government and 9 civil society organizations endorsed the Open Government Declaration and announced their country action plans. So together, the Philippines, together with Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, Norway, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the United States are the OGP founding government. Now, OGP has a simple but powerful goal. Ito po yan. That government should truly serve and empower their citizens. OGP's vision is that government become more transparent, more accountable, and more responsive to their own citizens, improving the quality of governance and service that citizens receive or deserve. Now, since 2011, the OGP has grown to a partnership already of 78 now countries, a growing number of local governments, and thousands of civil society organizations who come together to address the most pressing governance challenges faced by these countries. OGP brings together domestic champions of reform and in government and civil society who recognize government are much more likely to be effective and credible if they open their doors to public input and oversight and collaborate with stakeholders outside government. So basically, building trusts. Okay. So OGP has 4 core principles that guide its mission and initiatives. So the principle of transparency promotes openness and accessibility of government information, processes, and decision making. So it aims to ensure that citizens have access to reliable, as mentioned earlier, timely information about government activities, budgets, policies, laws, and public service. Transparency, as mentioned, is to foster public trust. It enables accountability also and allows citizens to participate in and influence government action. Now, on the other hand, accountability refers to the responsibility of government to answer for their actions and decisions. Alam naman po natin yan. And so, be responsive to the needs of interest of citizen. It also involves mechanism to monitor and evaluate government performance, ensure compliance with laws and regulations, and address instances of corruption or abuse of power. Also, accountability mechanism empowers citizens to hold governments accountable for their action. Now, participation emphasizes the active engagement of citizens in public decision-making processes. It promotes inclusivity, enabling individuals and communities to contribute to their policy formulation, implementation, and evaluation. By involving citizens, government can ensure that policies and services reflect the diverse needs and preferences of the people they serve. And lastly, leveraging on technology involves utilizing digital tools, platforms, and innovations to enhance transparency, citizens' participation, and the overall effectiveness of governance. So those are the principles that, as we engage with our citizens, these are the principles that we value. Now, at the core of the OGP process is what we call the co-creation process. Ito po yung pinaka-importante. Okay, where government and civil society join or partner with each other to come out with the country commitments embodied in the National Action Plan, or what we call the NAP. Kasi every nation po, be a member of the OGP, should have a National Action Plan or NAP, wherein this co-creation process is part of which we engage the citizen. Now, evidence from 10 years of OGP shows that high-level public participation in action plan design is linked to more diverse action plans and more ambitious commitments. For public participation to be meaningful, OGP member countries should purposely design the co-creation process so that it allows any interested stakeholders such as the citizens, civil society organization, government agencies, local government units, the legislative, academics, private sector to provide ideas and feedback, identify priorities and purpose commitment for the action plan. So the process should intentionally seek input, okay, from underrepresented groups to define priorities through targeted awareness raising and outreach to broaden the circle of engaged actors. It could also seek broader input, including from other ministries, agencies, or even parliaments. So, successful OGP action plans focus on significant open government priorities and ambitions. Reforms are relevant to the OGP values of transparency, accountability, and public participation, and it contains a specific, time-bound, and measurable commitment. Kasi po, yung ating National Action Plan talagang we have that monitoring process. So when you monitor, so agencies and even CSO participants or commitment holders should have a milestone in achieving that goal. Now, the action plan development. Ito po naman yung action, paano natin ginagawa po yung ating National Action Plan. So it starts with analyzing inputs which make sense on the contributions collected from the consultation. Ito yung kinukolect po namin yung what we call the citizens' agenda. This is followed by the defining the problem wherein agencies and their partners appropriately identify, analyze, and articulate the problem being experienced. Identifying solutions follows, which explores potential solutions to the problems articulated and notes how the OGP platform can effectively respond to the identified issues. It is important to note, to check that the relevance of the proposed solutions, coincide with the OGP values. Now, the process of drafting the commitment should ideally only start after the problem has been clearly defined. Potential solutions have been explored and specific solutions have been selected as proposed commitments to explore. Now, specific activities po, as I mentioned earlier, and milestones should have been also identified, and stakeholders relevant to for the implementation of the commitment should have been engaged to ensure feasibility or buy-in for the implementation. So, and then it follows yung drafting the commitments subject to consultation and public commenting. So from the comments and feedback received, agencies accomplish what we call the reasoned response form, where they provide answer to concern or questions raised in the draft commitment. Explain the reason for accepting or not accepting the suggestions or comment received, and this is followed by the finalization of the commitment for enrollment in the action plan. By the way po, yung commenting period, we even publish that in our website so that the public, not only the CSOs na have commitment, also can comment on that particular commitment from the national government agencies. Okay. Now, as far as then, how does the OGP model work? Paano nga ba? So, next slide. The OGP Action Plan Model works through pillars. Ito po yung action, accountability, and community. So, an action plan is comprised of concrete reforms and commitments from government which are co-created with the civil society organizations, as early mentioned. So, the action plan implementation undergoes what we call self-assessment and third-party assessment through the independent reporting mechanism, or IRM, to stimulate dialogue and, of course, promote accountability between member governments and their stakeholders. And lastly, OGP member countries, members engage in peer learning and exchange among member countries with the support from the OGP support chain. One of these learning activities that the OGP has provided is through what we call the Global Summit. Every 2 years, the OGP member countries meet together to share what has been the development as far their OGP in their country and their commitments. And even we have what we call the OGP regional meetings. Okay. Now, at the country level, the National Action Plan, or Open Government Policy Mechanism, supports collaborative engagement from governments and civil society in designing, implementing, and monitoring commitments. So really, OGP creates a safe space for government and civil society to partner for progress. As it is the center or platform for domestic dialogue between government and civil society, co-creating a set of contextualized open government commitments for a 2-year or a 4-year action plan. For this year, we are medium term, 4 years po ang ginawa na po natin yan. These are homegrown reforms, not top-down imposed. So, hindi po siya top-down. Kumbaga, co-created and homegrown siya. This provides opportunities for citizen input and oversight that creates more effective and efficient and credible government. As you can see in the next slide, ito po, we already have, since 2011, we have already implemented 5 national action plans with 65 commitments that respond to a broad range of national issues. So these commitments, coupled with the strong dedication and support of the PHOGP Steering Committee and champions and reformers in various national and local governance landscape, from a high-level political leaders, career officials, civil servants, and civil society actors, pivoted our countries to be recognized as global leader in the open government community. Yung ating 6th National Action Plan po is the first medium-term plan that covers 4 cycles. That is from 2023 to 2027. Now, so So that's our National Action Plan. Now siguro may tatanong nyo, ano ba ang mga nagawa na natin? What we have accomplished so far as being a member of the PHOGP. We have accomplished much in the last decade through commitments in the National Action Plan. These commitments that are started as a program or project within the agency were institutionalized through executive order, enacted into law, or are recognized globally because of its ambition and its potential to produce concrete outcomes and impact. Ito po, some of these commitments are the following. Ito po yung naging ano na po. Number one is the EITI, which was institutionalized via EO 79 series of 2012 and EO 147 series of 2013. Ito po, though it's not been passed in Congress, the Freedom of Information Program operationalized via EO2 series of 2016, and of course the localization of the FOI program is still ongoing. We understand there's a lot of local ordinances that has been already being implemented. Ito naman po, the ease of doing business was enacted via RA 11032 in 2018. And the Seal of Good Local Governance, SGLG, was enacted via RA 11252 in 2019. And of course, kumbaga, ito po yung considered as one of the award during the first Global Summit in London, wherein put in a bright spot award, the Citizens Participatory Audit. And also the program and grassroots participatory budgeting were both recognized by OGP internationally during its global summits. And the DBM Fiscal Openness Program and the DILG DBM PCEOs, the Gao Regional Town Hall Sessions are attributed in the Open Budget Survey, where the Philippines remains in the top 3 Southeast Asian countries in terms of budget transparency, budget oversight, and citizens' participation. Now, moving on to our institutionalizing the PHOGP. With such accomplishments, and after over a decade, as an active OGP member country, we were able to institutionalize the PHOGP. So, as a testament to the country's commitment to promoting transparency and strengthening social accountability and empowering Filipinos through open governance and people's participation, Executive Order Number 31 institutionalizing the PHOGP in the country was signed last June 20, 2023. So, bago lang po yan. Okay. Now, EO number 31 institutionalized the PHOGP as a multi-stakeholder partnership responsible for overseeing and implementing the country's commitment to the OGP. So, through the steering committee, the PHOGP shall ensure open government values are embedded in government policies and programs, which are transparency, accountability, and citizens' participation. So the steering committee provides a space for ongoing dialogues and collaboration between the government and the CSOs composed of balanced, inclusive, and diverse representation. Okay, so the PHOGP steering committee is composed of 20 equal representatives from the government and non-government sector, where the DBM sits as the chairperson with Malaya Incorporated as a co-chairperson. And ito po yung mga member ng ating steering com present. 10 po sa government and 10 rin po sa CSOs. Sa government po, of course, DBM being the chair, kasama po dito yung Office of the Executive Secretary, the National Economic and Development Authority, Department of Interior and Local Government, Department of Social Welfare and Development, Department of Finance, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, or the ULAP, the Supreme Court, and the Senate of the Philippines. From the non-government side naman po, we have civil society organizations, representatives from the major island regions. Of course, sa Luzon, ito po yung LENTE or the Legal Network for Truthful Election. Yung Visayas, sa Visayas naman po, yung CENVISNET or the Central Visayas Network of NGOs. And in Mindanao, ito po yung Mahintana Foundation Incorporated. From the private sector representative, we have the Makati Business Club. And from the academe, we have the LaSalle Institute of Governance. Public Sector Union, Union PS Link Public, which is Public Service Labor Independent Confederation. And from the youth, ito po yung Youth Alliance for FOI. And women's sector, yung Malaya Ka Incorporated. And the CSOs working on justice, which is the Citizens Watch for Good Governance, CWGG, and environment and climate sectors, which is the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities. Now, last December 28, 2023, we were able to submit our 6th National Action Plan. Contains 8 commitments with 10 projects or programs. 4 of these 10 projects or programs are continuation and or build up from previous action plan commitments, while 6 commitments are entirely new. 8 government agencies, together with their non-government or counterparts, shall lead the efforts and work together towards achieving these targets. And next slide will show us the commitments in the National Act Plan are as follows. Ito po yung Presidential Communication Office with their commitment, localization of Freedom of Information Program. Supreme Court. Ito po ang kagandahan ngayon that we have right now engaged the Supreme Court and commitment holders as far as the National Action Plan, 6th National Action Plan, wherein yung commitment po nila is enhanced administration of justice at the local level. Ito po yung maganda rin isang programa po nila, improve access to quality, free, or affordable legal service. From the part of the DBM po, ito po yung Project DIME, or what we call the Project Digital Imaging for Monitoring and Evaluation, which is basically establishment of an efficient and effective technology-enabled participatory validation and reporting mechanism for selected government infrastructure project. And now, from the COMELEC, very timely po itong commitment ng COMELEC. It is because we have a super election next year. Di ba? Sabi nila super or mega election. We have 3 elections next year. It's basically the verification and certification of list of voters, conduct of more overseas and local field registration activities for overseas voters. As far as the GPPB, our TSO, we are planning to have procurement, the diagnostics hub. And from the Department of Interior and Local Government support to local governance program, ito po yung in safeguarding civic space and strengthen social accountability, yung kanilang DIME project. Now, as far as the DUF is concerned, they want to have that subnationalizing transparency, accountability, and participatory governance mechanism in the extractive sector. And from the NEDA, ito po yung strengthening collaboration in the acceleration of progress in sustainable development goals, wherein they have the program of what we call Stakeholders Chamber on the Sustainable Development Goal, or SDG. Now, moving on, beyond the National Action Plan, 3 branches of government have a lot of opportunities for co-creation as approach to policy making. Ito po yung the conduct of OG-Pinas. Ito po yung we are going around the Philippines to promote an advocacy campaign, the Open Gov Week. Nangyari po yung OG-Pinas po, Quezon City, Baguio, Davao, CDO, Cotabato City, Iloilo City, Albay, Palawan, and this month we'll be going to Zamboanga City. Now, as well, we had, katatapos lang po, every year po kasi we have what we call Open Gov Week, which is a global celebration which we have also done in the Philippines. Also, the Open Government Challenge are opportunities for co-creation wherein issues on fiscal matters are discussed. OGP local program that recently had 4 additional LGU members from the Philippines. If you see dyan po sa ating membership ng OGP, mayroon pang OGP local naman. Sa ngayon po, may bagong mga members from the local government units. Ito po yung Tagbilaran City, Municipality of Larena, in Siquijor, Baguio City, and Quezon City. Initially po, mayroon na po tayong member na 2 po, which is South Cotabato and Borongan City. Okay. Now, other opportunities are partnership, of course, building. We do and various activities including fora, conferences, and upcoming hosting of, ito po, i-announce ko na rin po, Philippines of the OGP Asia and the Pacific Regional Meeting that will happen next year. That will be in February 2025. So we'll be having international meetings po dito in the Asia Pacific region. Okay. I guess other co-creation opportunities, ito po, this is probably an opportunity and even a challenge, but I have to put it, i-present ko na rin po. For legislative branch, co-creation opportunities are available which will help improve the country's effort and citizens' participation. Ito po yung medyo mababa po tayo as far as citizens' participation as far as the legislative is concerned. While we rank first in Southeast Asia and under citizens' participation in Open Budget Survey 2023, and our score of 33 out of 100 is above the global average score of 15, we can do so much more in this aspect if we can embed co-creation in our processes. Ang hinihiling po lang dito is the conduct of public hearing on the annual budget, which can be done in various ways as we leverage on the use of technology naman. This should be documented with a link to online broadcast of these hearings provided, public deliberation on audit reports, which in previous years have been instrumental in fiscal policy making. Now, other participatory mechanism strategies can be devised to engage the public, so to get their inputs in fiscal matters and issues and use the same mechanism to provide feedback on the public inputs. Now, it's crucial to close the feedback loop to determine how the inputs are used. I think the legislative can think of other ways to ensure there is citizens' participation in their processes. I initially discussed that with a group from the Congress. The partners from CSOs and government sector are always available and willing to engage with the legislative for their various advocacies in fiscal policy. So the general public, we can be sure that the interests is interest in how we enact the budget and the process which we do them. As a matter of fact, in our proposed budget reform bill, we have actually included that in our provision of that what we call the Budgeting for Better and Modernized Governance Bill, Section 56, which is participatory budgeting process wherein the government shall establish and implement suitable participatory budget mechanism to facilitate the open, inclusive, and meaningful engagement of citizens throughout the budget process. So such participatory mechanism may include consultations with the RDC, local development councils, in the formulation of the national and local budget, respectively, partnership with CSOs, academic institution, and expert programs that minority and help improve agency or local government preparation, execution, and monitoring the budget. So very important po, hopefully also coming from you, the staff of the Congress and of course the Senate we can also help us achieve this goal of ours, wherein citizens can really actively participate in the process. So with that, I will end. Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone once more.
Everyone, morning. I am honored to share with you the Commission on Audit's story on citizen participation. So let us go back in 2011 when government leaders and civil society advocates came together to create a unique partnership, one that combines these powerful forces to promote transparent, participatory, inclusive, and accountable governance. And this is the Open Government Partnership, or the OGP, as discussed by ASEC Toledo. So, next slide, please. All right, there. So the OGP, as discussed by ASEC Toledo, is a multilateral initiative that aims to secure concrete commitments from governments to promote transparency, empower citizens, fight corruption, and harness new technologies to strengthen governance. The Philippines, we are proud to say, is one of the 8 founding members of the OGP, which includes the USA, the United Kingdom, Norway, Brazil, South Africa, Indonesia, and Mexico. So in responding to the call for involvement of government entities in the Open Government Partnership, the Commission on Audit initiated the Citizen Participatory Audit, or as we call it, the CPA. This is a program in 2012 with the initial establishment of the CPA operational guidelines. So this was also achieved through the technical assistance from our development partners, the Australian Agency for International Development, or AusAid, the World Bank, and by the program Making All Voices Count, or MAVC. So next slide, please. So what is the CPA? The CPA is an audit strategy. It's an avenue for reform. It is a priority program of the Commission on Audit to uphold people's primordial right to a clean government and the prudent utilization of government resources, founded on the premise that public accountability can only prosper with a vigilant and involved citizenry for the promotion of transparency and effectiveness. Second, it is also an audit strategy for citizen and civil society involvement, ensuring transparency and better accountability. If you could remember, during the formulation of the CPA operational guidelines in 2012, it was co-partnered by the COA and our CSOs. Third, a mechanism for strategic partnership for sharing aspirations, goals, and objectives. And lastly, it is an audit technique in conducting audits with citizens as members of the audit team. So next slide, please. Okay, so what are the drivers that gives us the mandate to pursue CPA? Okay, as we see on the screen, the 1987 Philippine Constitution provides us with a mandate that allows participation of non-governmental, community-based or sectoral organizations that promote the welfare of the nation. Also, in Article 9-D, Section 2.2 of the Philippine Constitution, it gives COA the exclusive authority to define the scope of its audit and examination, and utilize the techniques and methods required therefore. So this provision gives COA a wide latitude in determining how we conduct our audits. Next is, we have taken advantage of a special law, the Republic Act number 9418, which is popularly known as the Volunteer Act of 2007. This promotes the participation of various sectors of Filipino society and, as necessary, international and foreign volunteer organizations in public and civic affairs, and adopt and strengthen the practice of volunteerism as a strategy to attain national development and international standing. So, next slide, please. So from our experience, for CPA to succeed, it must be built on a strong foundation. So on screen, you can see the 6 building blocks that define the success of our CPA. First is the mandate of the institution. So we are a supreme audit institution, and as such, COA must have the mandate to pursue the CPA. Second, another building block is the leadership commitment. The success of CPA is highly dependent on the leadership of the institution. And of course, we are lucky enough that from the very beginning up to the present, our commission proper is there and constantly supporting the citizen participatory audit. The next is concrete pathway and strategy. Continuous commitment is manifested through the inclusion of CPA in the COA strategic plan. This is also coupled with concrete directives in its implementation. The next building block is financial backup. It is indispensable in realizing the roles and responsibilities of each stakeholder in the implementation of the CPA. So we really need this for the sustainability of the citizen participatory audit. Next is the accountability structures and focal point. For the CPA to be a success, roles and responsibilities must be clear at the onset to determine the accountability of each stakeholder. Also, there is a need for a focal point. It is essential in the management of the CPA program. Our office, the Project Management Office, is the focal point for the CPA in the Commission on Audit. And finally, clear guidelines and concrete processes must be established before implementation of the CPA program to minimize gray areas and ambiguity. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the CPA overall framework. We have 4 phases. The first one is the planning phase. Second is the implementation. Third, monitoring and feedback. And fourth is the assessment and enhancement. For the planning stage begins by obtaining feedback from external stakeholders. All feedbacks are consolidated, and a call for CPA is initiated based on the feedbacks provided. Sectoral plans are prepared where CPA audit topics are identified, and finally, a CPA plan is formulated. Okay, the phase 2 is implementation. This phase relates to the actual conduct of the citizen participatory audit where CSOs are involved and their expertise are utilized. Third is monitoring and feedback. Here, CPA implementation is monitored and feedback is obtained. This is to ensure that timelines are followed and that issues and concerns during the audit is being addressed. And finally, assessment and enhancement. Periodically, and of course, per policy, assessment for improvement opportunities are identified, and any proposed enhancement will be for the consideration of the Commission proper. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so this is the CPA planning framework. We have the first one, obtaining citizen CSO inputs. Second is the annual call for CPA. And third, the annual CPA plan. So as indicated in the overall CPA framework, the CPA planning constitutes a big portion of the CPA. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So what are the ways of obtaining citizen or CSO feedbacks or inputs? First, we have the CPA dialogues. the CPA dialogues, and the other one is through the Citizen Desk reporting system. So we're discussing the CPA dialogues. The CPA dialogues is a one-day activity usually conducted in each of the main islands of the Philippines, the Luzon, one in Luzon, one in Visayas, and one in Mindanao, and also one in the national capital region. So during the CPA dialogues, all external stakeholders, including the CSOs, the academe, media, government entities, and professional organizations, and other stakeholders, together with our auditors, get together for the purpose of sharing aspirations and goals and objectives, and also give feedback on possible audit topics that COA can address. So the next one is the Citizens Desk reporting system. This is an electronic medium, para siyang 888. This is an electronic medium through which citizens may bring concerns which they think COA can address. It is a tool to efficiently receive, record, monitor queries, complaints, requests, reports on allegations of fraud, waste, or mismanagement of public funds. So the output from both the CPA dialogues and the CDRS are consolidated and submitted to the chair as basis for the call for CPA sectoral planning. So the audit topics, we have to note that the audit topics with high impact to governance is given utmost importance as they draw the interest of our citizenry. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the annual call for CPA planning. The call is done through a memorandum, as you can see, through a memorandum by the chairperson to the assistant commissioners of all our audit sectors. So here, the chair directs all sectors to prepare their respective sectoral plans and submit it to the focal point, the project management office. So the PMO consolidates all sectoral plans and submit it to the chair for approval. Once approved, it becomes the annual CPA plan for the given year. So here is the annual CPA plan. Okay, that's how it looks like. All right, so the annual CPA plan consists of audit topics as a strategy of the audit teams. It becomes the basis for the CPA implementation for the given year. So usually we do this every year, starting 2022. All right, so next slide, please. So here is the CPA implementation process. This is the second phase of our framework. First, we have 8 stages for this. First is the preparation of the audit design. Second is the conduct of the exploratory meeting. Third is the conduct of the capacity building activity. Fourth is the signing of the memorandum of agreement between COA and the CSO. Fifth is the conduct of the CPA team planning. Sixth is the audit execution itself. 7 is the audit reporting. And so 7th is the audit reporting, and 8th is monitoring of audit recommendations. So let's discuss them one by one. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the first stage, the preparation of the audit design. The audit team meets to prepare the audit design or plan for the audit engagement. This is also serves as materials for the exploratory meeting. The approved audit topic from the CPA is their basis in the preparation of the audit design or plan. Okay, next. Second is the conduct of the exploratory meetings. Exploratory meetings are conducted by inviting heads of civil society organizations to explain the CPA, present the audit design, and obtain commitments. So this is the most important thing in the exploratory meeting, obtaining commitments to join the CPA engagement and related capacity building activities. So if there are CSOs who did not commit, then we repeat and conduct another exploratory meeting until we get a commitment from the CSOs. That's how we do it. Okay, next slide, please. Third is the conduct of the capacity building activity. So here, COA provides training on the CPA as a strategy And second, details of the audit activities, including the tools to be used by the audit team members together with the prospective citizen partners as participants. Next slide, please. Fourth, we have the conduct of the Memorandum of Agreement signing and the citizen partner nomination and authorization. So COA and the CSO heads signed the Memorandum of Agreement. The CSO head nominates the CSO members of the CPA team. Then COA authorizes the participation of the nominated CSO partners as members of the CPA team, and the CSO partners sign the conforme portion of the authorization document to concretize the agreement. Okay, our fifth step is the CPA team planning. So after the issuance of the office order by the COA chairperson or his authorized representative, creating the CPA team. So meaning in our office order, our CSO partners are also there as citizen auditors. We call them citizen auditors. So the team conducts the CPA planning. This includes both our COA auditors and the citizen auditors. During the team planning, the team shall execute the audit in we have to assure that the team should execute the audit in accordance with the timelines indicated in the approved annual CPA plan. Also, this is the time where they enhance their audit tools, and the CSOs can share their skills or knowledge, if they have, to tweak, to enhance, and revise the tools for the specific audit. Okay? Next. Here's the audit execution or audit fieldwork. Here, CPA team implements the audit program to gather evidences to support audit findings, recommendations, and conclusions. So these pictures are taken by our CPA team in Benguet. So they are auditing the local roads project. This was in 2022. No, actually 23. All right. So here on the seventh step, we have audit reporting. The CPA audit team presents the results of the audit in a written report with comments of the auditee from the exit conference. The audit report is transmitted to the auditee and published both in the COA and the CPA website. Okay, so finally, we have monitoring and validating implementations of audit recommendations. Part of the responsibility of the auditor is to monitor the implementation of audit recommendations. And the CSO partners may be asked to join the auditor in validating these implementations. Okay, so here we can see the CPA in a COA snapshot. First, of course, we started in 2012 by the launching of the CPA. And then we had the phase one of the pilot audit, where we audited 3 projects from 2012 to 2015. And then came phase 2 of the CPA, wherein we piloted another 3 projects in 2015 to 2018. And of course, the CPA expansion came in 2016 to 2017, auditing 4 projects. And finally, the institutionalization of the CPA in 2018, where it is through a COA resolution. And finally, we conduct CPAs as part of the regular audits. Next slide, please. So this is the first pilot audit of our CPA. It's the Kaman Nava Flood Control Project. It looked into the ₱1 million Kaman Nava Flood Control Project to verify if the project attained its supposed flood mitigation objectives. So our CSO partner here is the Affiliated Network for Social Accountability, Europe, Asia, and the Pacific Foundation Incorporated, or the ANSA-AYAP. And this was funded by the OSAID. Okay, next is our pilot 2 on phase 1, the Barangay Health Centers in Marikina City. This is, here we assessed 4 barangays or village-level health centers in Marikina, catering to the poor beneficiaries of the National Government Conditional Cash Transfer or CCT program. Also, the funder is AusAid. And third, we have the Solid Waste Management Program of Quezon City. So this constitutes our phase 1. And then came phase 2. Next slide, please. Okay, in phase 2, we conducted CPA on water sanitation and hygiene or WASH in Cagayan de Oro. Also, next slide, please. The Tourism Roads Project or TRIP in Surigao and the Farm to Market Roads in Palawan. Next slide, please. Then the CPA expanded in 2016 to 2018 with the conduct of the CPA on farm to market roads in 10 regions of the Philippines. Next slide, please. It also conducted CPA on local disaster reduction risk and management funds in regions 2, Tuguegarao, and region 5, Albay. And also the Solid Waste Management Program in Metro Manila. And finally, the Barangay Health Centers nationwide. So after this, the CPA has already been institutionalized in 2018. And what we did was include the CPA in our regular audits. So this is the example of our CPAs during our regular audits. So the local government sector conducted CPA on weights and measures and the revenue audit in Quezon City. Next slide, please. Also, the availability, adequacy, and quality of water services in Quezon City by the COA corporate government sector. And the CPA on public elementary and secondary school buildings in Metro Manila by the COA national government sector. One of our partners here is the Code NGO, and Dino was present there. Okay. However, the COVID-19 pandemic halted all CPA activities and engagements that we only resumed our audit using the CPA in 2022. So we started again in 2022 up to the present. Okay. So, I'm sorry. Can you go back to the previous slide? Thank you. All right, so the use of CPA as a strategy has allowed us to realize its true value. Trust building has led to a meaningful participatory relationship between COA and citizens, with the citizens having a high level of awareness of their role in upholding accountability. Use of unique experience and expertise made the audit more responsive to the needs and expectations of the constituents and the public at large. Service beneficiaries and stakeholders felt empowered and are better engaged as they have a strong voice in lending credibility to budget implementation and public governance as a whole. And finally, this is so true, auditees are more receptive to audit recommendations with citizenry directly involved in the audits, with service providers being more circumspect in their actions to perform better. Okay. So while we recognize the material benefits and values of the CPA, we also recognize some risks and challenges in its implementation. The CSO engagement sustainability are concrete examples of our challenges, and it consists of the following: volunteer fatigue, CSO's inability to commit to the audit engagement, non-availability of CSOs in the locality where CPA will be undertaken, and lack of interest in a particular audit. Second one is fiscal constraints, because CPA entails a significant amount of funding. So the inclusion of CPA in the annual operational budget is complex. To mitigate this, CPA indeed requires an effective implementation strategy. Next slide, please. Okay. So here are our plans for the future. Recalibration of CPA policy and guidance based on lessons learned. Actually, the draft CPA guidelines is already expected to be finalized by the end of 2024. Our office is working on this, on the finalization of the guidelines. The policy is being enhanced to adapt to the needs of the present time. Second is the decentralization of CPA function for better efficiency and wide reach. So CPA will be decentralized to all audit sectors to empower them to utilize the strategy with minimum guidance and oversight. And lastly, enhancement of engagement inclusivity through non-state actors rather than just CSOs. The concept of citizen participation will be enhanced for engagement inclusivity, which will extend to all non-state actors, which includes all other organizations like the academe, media, students, POs, and not just CSOs. We're planning to tap them all to join the CPA. So, next slide, please. So this is our accolades and affirmations, as what have, as ASEC Toledo said a while ago. We have won in November 2013. The CPA received the first Bright Spots Award prize from OGP during the OGP Summit in London, and he was there when OGP Philippines was awarded this. Second, in 2017, CPA received the Special Mention Award from the jury of the Global Initiative for Fiscal Transparency, or GIFT. In 2021, CPA won first place in the 2021 OGP Impact Awards for Asia and the Pacific. And during the OGP week in 2022, OGP gave us or awarded us with Certificate of Recognition for exemplifying OGP values through the implementation of the CPA. So meron na po kaming 4 na awards. And so, next slide, please. So this ends my CPA story. All right. This is our CPA Jeep, and it is our symbol. It is our way of inviting all CSOs and citizens to hop in and join us in our CPA. Kaya mga kababayan, tara na, sakay na. Thank you, and mabuhay po kayong lahat.
And COA. So next, we would like to call on our reactor to discuss the role of NGO in public accountability. Our reactor is the Executive Director of the National Office of the Caucus of Development NGO Networks, or CODE NGO. Since 2009, he has been involved in coalition building and has been engaged in training and advocacies of the Coalition for Transparency, Accountability, and Participation in Governance. He also works with the different national government agencies through the National Anti-Poverty Commission and the Open Government Partnership, which has been thoroughly discussed both by ASEC Rolly and Ms. Jennifer Imperial, among other engagements. May I call on Executive Director Sandino Saliman on stage to give his reaction on the sessions. Sir.
Their presentations. And also, meron daw pong video na ipapalabas mamaya ang COA to know more about the citizens participatory audit. Indeed, mukhang napili po tayo na sumama dito kasi part po kami ng Open Government Partnership. Yung Code NGO po ay yung counterpart na secretariat for the non-government sector of the Open Government Partnership. And indeed, sumama ako doon sa CPA nung sa school buildings, naging isang volunteer auditor. Natuwa po ako kasi nagkaroon ako ng tsapa na taga-COA ako. So, pwede ko mahiram po yung tatry ko lang po kung gumagana dito. Hindi pa rin. Sige. First slide po. I titled my reaction as padayon ta, which means tuloy lang tayo. Kasi as you will know, I represent a coalition of civil society organizations. And I'll also talk about yung relevance ng civil society organizations today. But before that, let me go to the next slide and introduce who we are. We are the Caucus of Development NGO Networks, or Code NGO. It's one of the largest coalition of CSOs working for social development, and by the name, it's an advocacy group of civil society organizations. We have 6 regional networks, meaning they're based in a specific geographic region. For example, kanina na-mention po yung Central Visayas Network of NGOs and POs, or CENVISNet. They're one of our members po. And then, dun sa isang network pong yun, sa Central Visayas, they have different provincial networks. They have a network in Negros Oriental, they have a network in Bohol, they have a network in Cebu. And these comprise of individual-based organizations, what we call base organizations. And then we have also 6 major national networks. So ano po siya, national yung scope. Like the Association Foundations is our members, one of the largest networks of NGOs. We also have our NATCO, or National Confederation of Cooperatives. Ito pong NATCO, itong network of cooperatives po siya. Meron siyang separate pero affiliated na party list, yung Co-op NATCO. Bagamat party list po siya, connected siya dun sa network. Yung network naman ay for the cooperatives. And yun. So 12 members po kami, all in all. But under this membership, we have around 1,600 primary NGOs, cooperatives, and people's organizations operating all over the country. So that may be why the reason kung bakit napili kami ng Open Government Partnership Steering Committee as a secretariat po for the non-government sector. I'll explain later kung paano kami napili as the secretariat. And then also, to give some initial reaction din po sa presentations kanina ni Dr. Marivic, it's good that she mentioned right to information. Kasi we have made progress on this through an executive order 2 series of 2016 that institutionalized freedom of information practices sa executive. But still, as Code NGO is also part of the Right to Know Right Now network, we're advocating for a full legislation na magbigay po ng framework talaga for freedom of information. Kasi this will provide the enabling environment for transparency and accountability. So, ayan, kasama po natin dito yung Action for Economic Reforms, yung Social Watch din. So, ito po ang matagal na naming hinahangad since hindi ko na maalala kung kailan pa nagsimula yung advocacy for FOI. Pero ito po ay patuloy pa rin namin na ina-advocate. And then in the absence of policy, reformers build practice of transparency and accountability. So sa Right to Know Right Now, we build the practice of accountability. We have inquiries sa mga agencies patungkol sa mga different topics para makita din kung ito bang yung access to information ay talaga bang accessible for us. So also we do recognize na may mga practices sa local level. So sa mga munisipyo, sa mga probinsya, cities, na in the past decade, nag-release po ng mga memorandum circular yung Department of Interior and Local Government on the full disclosure policy. So meron naman siya. Tapos, yun nga po, yung isa sa mga programa ng Communications Office or FOI Office na under the Philippine Communications Office ay mag-promote ng ordinances ng FOI. So, yun yung isa sa mga programa nila. We recognize naman those. Although, yun nga, para mas maganda yung framework natin for right to information, maganda talaga na may batas na tayo on this. Tapos po, hindi lang po mahalaga na yung mga CSOs ay kami ay nag-organize for our own issues and concerns. Kasi mahalaga din na nabibigyan din kami ng yung mga CSOs ng capacity to understand what's going on in terms of yung sa mga pagbasa ng budgets, pag-advocate for their agenda and putting them in these budgets. Kasi minsan hindi kami nakakasabay nga tulad ng nasabi kanina ni Dr. Raquiza dun sa mga technical na pagbasa ng budgets or minsan parang masyadong technocratic na yung dating. But it's really important for us na nag-gather kami and then we see the need to address certain societal concerns or community concerns and then we put this forward to the decision makers. So mahalaga na may capacity building din yung CSOs on that and national platforms such as us, such as Social Watch, can provide these avenues. But then again, we face a challenge din sa CSOs in general dito sa Philippines and also sa global. So in the next slide, so Code NGO and other civil society organizations look at these challenges and concerns in relation to sustainability. We publish studies on Civil Society Organization Sustainability Index or CSOSI in the last 6 years, so from 2015 to 2021. And we look at different dimensions of sustainability, including legal framework, legal environment, advocacy, and organizational capacity. Iba't iba po ang parang masasabi natin about sa mga challenges natin sa CSOs. And as I talk through these slides, I'll show briefly parang saan po kami nahihirapan in terms of sustainability. Pero in the next slide, you'll see na we have a chart na if we go to the right, medyo hindi tayo sustainable. Ibig sabihin yung mga CSOs ay hindi sustainable dito sa mga countries na to. By the way, itong methodology na to, you can look it up sa website ng CSOSI. This was developed by the USAID and then the ICNL and FHI 360 na para may comparability across countries on the sustainability of CSOs. Gumawa sila ng methodology to measure sustainability na impeded, then sustainability na evolving, and then yung pinakamaganda is sustainability enhanced or merong environment yung CSOs to flourish because they are sustainable. But because of certain factors, in these countries in Asia, CSOs sustainability is either evolving or impeded. So tayo sa Philippines, medyo hindi naman ganun kagrabe yung sitwasyon, pero still meron tayong mga challenges. So we are evolving, kumbaga, in our sustainability for CSOs. Sa next slide po, makikita natin yung sa latest na sustainability na rating ng CSOs on these dimensions. So we have 7. Tapos yung pinaka-impeded po, yung pinaka-hirap po yung Philippine CSOs ay dun sa legal environment tsaka sa financial viability. For others, okay naman po tayo. Pero yun nga po, I just like to parang raise this, parang isa sa mga concerns na if we're talking about participation, we also need to talk about how CSOs can participate given these challenges. So when we talk about legal environment, next slide po. When we talk about financial viability in the Philippines, for CSOs, we talk about if CSOs have the financial capability to actually operate. And for development CSOs that carry advocacies, for example, may mga development NGOs that carry the advocacies for fiscal transparency. Di po siya ganun karami. Iilan lang din po yung may interest for this. And then more so na kakaroon kami ng problems in terms of sa funding. Globally, nagda-dry up yung funding for civil society organizations for development. And mas na pupunta yung attention sa mga countries na kailangan ng support. So for example, dun sa mga may gera, like sa Ukraine, sa Gaza, mas napupunta na dun yung support ng mga donors na usually nag-fund dito sa Philippines. Tapos, ayun na nga, parami din actually mga formations dito sa Philippines. So, medyo kakaroon ng competition. But then again, yung 2020 tsaka 2021, lalong tinamaan po yung mga civil society organizations due to the effects of the pandemic. So, may iba na talagang tumigil yung operations kasi hindi na nakaya ng kanilang organizations. But hindi pa po tapos ang lahat kasi meron naman po tayong partnerships na gustong isulong. So mamaya po didiscuss ko ng konti kung paano natin maximize yung partnerships na pwedeng makatulong po sa mga CSOs, especially on the mga nag-advocate ng fiscal transparency. So sa next slide po, we talk about the legal environment in the Philippines. So ito po, medyo bumaba siya since the time na nag-start kami ng survey, ng study noong 2017. Kasi tinitingnan po natin dito yung civic spaces at saka yung mga social and political factors that affect yung pag-operate ng CSOs. So, bagamat may legal framework naman that allows CSOs to operate, merong difficulty in terms of yung sa pag-comply nga ng requirements as mentioned kanina, especially na parang naghihigpit or parang nagiging tedious yung process ng registration, tapos may process din ng accreditation for different agencies. But then again, we have to balance then also this one kasi our stakeholders, agencies would need to also verify or vouch for the legitimacy of the civil society organizations. But then hindi lang din to yung yung issue, meron ding issue of repression, yung chilling effect ng mga nangyayari sa mga human rights violations, at saka yung attack sa mga human rights defenders and journalists. So ito yung mga na-document natin kasi kaya bumaba yung parang situation sa legal environment. And yung shrinking civic space, mamaya makita natin, is also not only unique sa Philippines but a worldwide phenomenon. So these are some of the challenges we wish to address moving forward. Sa next po na dimension, in terms of organizational capacity naman, ayan, bumaba lang nung 2020 dahil nga sa pandemic. Pero nag-peak naman nung 2021 kasi andun naman yung CSOs. Ibig sabihin, while there are challenges, CSOs are really there to provide for the communities. Especially nung pandemic, sila po din talaga yung nasa ground at nag-respond sa mga needs ng communities nung nangangailangan ng pagkain, nangangailangan ng mga things na kailangan nila for their health and safety. Tumulong yung CSO sa pag-provide nito doon sa time na yan. Kaya tumaas yung tumaas yung aming pagtingin sa organizational capacity ng CSO sa Philippines. Sa next slide po, these are also some of the slides na pinakita ni Asek Rolly, just to emphasize na meron tayong ngayon mga partnerships na that are parang improving. And in fact, even before the pandemic, andito na. So sa next slide po, yung slide before that, yan. I'll just emphasize lang po na yung OGP has been around since 2011, and the organized na CSOs, kasama dito yung mga iba't ibang national na NGOs, have been part of the process in one way or another. But still, hindi pa rin po namin na sasama ang mas marami pa na CSOs. So, a lot of work needs to be done in terms of yung paano natin to mas foster, paano pa natin to mas mapapayaman yung partnership with the OGP. And na yun po na andito po kami as part of, andito kami ulit. Kasi ilang times na rin na select yung Code NGO as the Secretariat for the Non-Government Steering Committee. May opportunity tayo to expand these partnerships. So, yung steering committee kanina, napakita ni Asek Rolly na part government and part non-government. And then, there were 10 members of the steering committee. So, this is the MSF, dun sa language po ng OGP Global, multi-stakeholder, forum, sorry, thank you. Multi-stakeholder forum siya. And while may 10 po doon na organizations na present from the non-gov, yung 10 po nun would like to bring in as many as possible na CSOs bring in the CSOs to the OGP activities na mention din kanina. So, as many as possible, including later on, yung paano natin mas mababantayan or mas makakaroon ng participation yung CSO sa budgeting processes. Kasi yung multi-stakeholder forum or yung steering committee has that mandate also to popularize and advocate for the OGP values. At so hindi lang sila dun sa National Action Plan, pero rin sila, dun din sila sa beyond the National Action Plan na gustong gawin ng citizens agenda. Non-government sector yung shepherd ng pagbuo ng citizens agenda na na-mention kanina. So malaking role po yun ng non-government sector na bring in yung voices ng iba't ibang sectors ng society dito sa OGP platform. And then later on, we hope na yung partnership na to will bring in more opportunities for us to promote these values. Yung next slide naman ay, and this is my last na reaction, this is a map of the civic space. So when we talk about civic space, yung paano nagpa-participate yung NGOs, CSOs, citizens, nag-a-assemble, ganyan. And kung makita natin, and this is done by Civicus, so this is an international alliance of NGOs and human rights organizations that measure yung iba't ibang challenges in terms of yung sa paano nakaka-participate ang CSOs. And sa ibang countries nga, they have repressive policies such that meron silang mga batas na pinapasa na yung mga CSOs kailangan mag-register sa government bago sila bigyan ng funding ng any international agencies. So, in that way, binabantayan talaga ng government kung sino yung mga dapat mabigyan ng funding o hindi. So, medyo concerning siya sa mga ibang bansa. Buti na lang dito sa Philippines, meron tayong self-regulatory na mechanism na tinatawag nating Philippine Council for NGO Certification or PCNC that vouches for yung mga NGOs that has a seal of good housekeeping. And then meron din tayong mga ways na para ma-vouch yung mga iba't ibang NGOs through various accreditations like sa DSWD, we have an accreditation process. Sa mga ibang agencies, meron din. And even sa local level, they have the Sangguniang Accreditation. Sa akin lang, baka we can find a balance kasi kung paano natin to pwedeng ma-harmonize at hindi masyadong maging burden sa isang NGO na mag-accredit siya sa DSWD, tapos sa PCNC, tapos magpo-produce siya ng mga ganitong karaming papeles para isubmit, ganyan. Medyo tedious nga siya. Pero let's find a way to do it. But then again, mas mabuti na tayo na may ganitong process kaysa sa ibang bansa na parang yung mga CSOs doon binabansagan na government spies or government, foreign spies pala or foreign parang kalaban, ganyan. So, hindi sila nakakapag-operate kasi either takot sila or talagang hinaharas sila ng mga governments na to. So, mahalaga po talaga yung partnership. No? So, when civil society organizations would like to express themselves, they are best positioned if they have partners in government or partners na kapwa nilang CSOs para makita po natin na kung tayo ay sincere, legitimate, and would like to forward yung mga concerns talaga ng ating community. So yun po, di na po ako magtatagal kasi baka may mga tanong at gusto ko yung ma-input. So thank you very much and good morning po sa lahat.
Binahagi nila na may mga naging dapat na baguhin sa school. Katulad po ng ng kakulangan sa water, marumi daw ang CR nila. Ang epekto doon na hindi po sila nakapag-concentrate sa pag-aaral nila. Dati, nung hindi pa po ako napasama o nakilahok sa CPA, ang pakiramdam ko sa sarili ko ay dito lang, sa apat na sulok ng bahay. So mag-alaga ng anak, magbabantay ng mga anak, maghatid sundo sa school. So nung napasama po ako, through unang hakbang, dito ko nararamdaman na ako pala ay pwedeng makilahok at pwedeng magpaabot, magiging tulay sa kinaukulan at masasabi natin, maiabot natin yung nagiging problema. Nung ayos na po yung kanilang CR, yung kanilang tubig naging maayos na rin. So yung pagpasok ng mga bata, tuloy-tuloy na, tsaka naging panatag ng kanilang loob na pumasok. Ang grades po nila nag-improve. Siguro yung pinakaano ko doon na natugunan ng CPA na nabago. So mapanatag na yung kalooban, hindi lang ako nanay na pag inhatid ko sila sa school, alam ko na yung pangangailangan nila na pangkaraniwan, nandoon na rin. Hinihikayat ko po ang mga magulang na tulad ko sa buong Pilipinas na makilahok sa CPA para mapabuti ang school ng ating mga anak. Sana mas marami pang mga nanay na tulad ko ang makilahok para lumakas ang puwersa natin.
This point, exciting part of the of the forum and dialogue, and I really would like to encourage our Senate and House colleagues to add, hopefully to add more clarity and context with regards to this topic. So we're more or less able to get some, feedback and more information about the issues at hand. So let me just remind for some house rules with regards to the open forum. So for the scholars of at the DAP Virata Hall who are here today, who may want to ask questions, please raise your hand and kindly identify yourselves and institution. And there are mics on the table for you to use. Please be brief and concise with your questions, and if possible, try to identify to whom would you want to direct your questions. So again, colleagues, the floor is open for your questions to our speakers, if there are any. Otherwise, I will be abusing my privilege as moderator of this forum. Any questions from the body? Going once, going twice? Okay, let me do my part as moderator. I observed, Professor Raquiza, in your slides earlier, you were showing some of contributions of the Social Watch. May I just know, more or less, I was seeing around 2012, 2013, 2014. But recently, how has the Social Watch been participating in the budget process? Can you elaborate more? And mind you, the one next to you is Yusek Rolly, who is the co-chair of the budget preparation for the FY 2025. So I guess probably he'll be saying a lot with what you will be saying. Ma'am?
Hello. So tama yung sinabi ni Dino. We started out with a bang, if you like. Kasi apart from the fact that we were able to convene and gather a lot of CSOs across thematic domains. We had education-related CSOs, social protection, health, and then we formed also a citizens agenda, if you like, around health. And then we engaged with DOH, DepEd, and all that. To some extent, in the latter years, that process sputtered. And that was also a function of several things. Internally, we stopped getting external funding for that process. Prior to that, we were getting funding from NOVIB, was one of our big Dutch, agency who was supporting this process. And a couple of others, Oxfam came in, but at some point, global priorities of the international donor community changed. And this very important work, which is to monitor budgets and making sure that it goes to where, where nawala yung external support. At the same time, we were conflicted because, we were operating from the idea that it was hard to criticize from the hand that feeds you. So at the time, we were not accepting funding from government, from DOH, from DepEd. So, that's a bit of a dilemma. And then to add on to what Dino is saying, Social Watch is a network of various NGOs with different orientations. Some of us will get USAID money, others will not. Social Watch per se will not get money from USAID as a matter of principle. I mean, it's a policy orientation because, for example, we're also critical of, for example, certain issues, thematic areas like right now, we know that tariffs for rice and other agricultural commodities have gone down. Hirap na hirap ang mga magsasaka. And this is a function of liberalization of trade in the agricultural sector. And so we're very critical of this sort of policies. And we know that these policies are being promoted by a lot of the international financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF. We need to have that difficult conversation. We need to get these kinds of stakeholders in the room as well. There is a big farmers organization who was very engaged on the process around RCEP, yung tarification ng rice tariffs. They should be part of that conversation. And I think our government people and IFIs, we should all sit together and in a collegial manner, discuss and debate para substantive at talagang, So there are a couple of things that's going on. One, the topics we talk about are no longer sexy to the donor community. But it's so important. At the same time, many of us will also not, there's such a thing as corporate and elite capture. And I'm not saying that's true for all. Hello? But that can be an issue. That can be an issue. So we have to be clear in terms of who's driving the policy agenda, what are our issues, how do we discuss it, put these hard issues on the table, discuss it with respect. But right now, tama si Dino, many of our really good organizations sa peasant sector, sa labor groups, sa civil society groups, are really hard up. And right now, sa totoo lang, some of the discussions that are going around is, maybe we can explore a Magna Carta for CSOs and people's organizations. Kasi in other countries, they're able to tap public funds. Kasi pera naman natin yan, but without the element of capture. Or, but that requires sophisticated and mature polity. Yeah. There's a requisite to that. But we should have that conversation going because the sustainability of CSOs, in a way, is imperiled under this social, political, fiscal climate. But, we're doing such important work in raising these kinds of questions. But if we're no longer in the room where these discussions are happening, it's a public service. Who wants to stay in the middle of the room and ask these questions? Parang nanggugulo ka eh. Diba? Ang tingin sa'yo, nanggugulo. Pero who else will ask these questions about bakit bumababa ang tariff line so much na naghihingalo na ang mga magsasaka? So it brings us back to the question, maybe we have to rethink the liberalization of agricultural trade. Maybe we have to rethink some issues around privatization. These are hard issues, hard questions, but they must be asked and they must be addressed.
Thank you, ma'am. I think, Edie Sandino, would you want to weigh in? Or if not, perhaps I would throw the questions to Yusek Rolly and Ms. Jen with regards to what Prof. Raquiza just said. Any comments from the group?
Yes, hello, yes. Good morning to everyone again. Yes, as they say, participation has its cost. And I agree with the observations. But yes, right now, as a matter of fact, as far as DBM and together with our co-secretariat, the NGO, in terms of support as to financing already the activities and events of the CSO counterpart natin, we have already some sort of support given to the Code NGO in terms of transfer of funds. So that is already allowed. So we have already memorandum of agreement or understanding that we have transferred funds in support for the CSOs. That's one. But as to direct support to the CSOs, that is one thing that you still have to probably look into it and probably come up with the policy. So as to the participation of the CSOs, which is what you ask actually, on how the CSOs can participate in the budget process, actually it's already embedded of our budget preparation process, which is actually, if you look at the budget call, makikita nyo po doon sa last page of that budget call is a budget calendar, wherein we have that portion of the consultation with whom? RDC, LDC, and even the CSOs, well, even I have it here, the students, faculty, associations, and other sectors. So it's already embedded in our process. As a matter of fact, it is also being supported with our budget form, which is the budget form D. If you look at that budget form D, you can see there that there is a CSO that should be filling up by the agencies. Dapat ma-inform yung ating mga CSOs on what has been included by the different departments and agencies of proposed, or rather, hindi siya proposal, but also the advocacy of the CSOs kung naisama nga ho sa budget ng bawat ahensya. But as far as we are concerned, sabi namin, we cannot recommend what has not been, kumbaga, proposed by the agencies. So the bottom line lies as far as the agency or central office, as far as budget proposals. Because syempre sila mas nakakaalam po ng priority ng bawat ahensya given their development plan at saka yung mandato nila. So we rely on that. So, but of course, ano po namin, we rely also that those agencies conduct these consultations. So that's from our, I think our Dino can also share with us or kumbaga manifest also kung yung what have said as far as the transfer of funds.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raquiza and Asek Rolly. Yes, indeed, for the Open Government Partnership where we were involved in since the beginning, it has been an issue na where do we parang get support for all of these activities. And I'm happy to parang share that this has been a struggle that has been a sort of merong celebration after the Executive Order 31 of 2023 was promulgated. And this parang gave us an avenue to secure support. So, ngayon, meron memorandum of agreement yung Code NGO and DBM that will support yung mga, at least yung transportation and accommodations. Kung meron mga activities yung OGP in terms of yun sa consultations, ganyan, sa mga forums. So, at least may initial support na yun. And then, we ensure na these are properly used para yun nga, ito ay magamit sa proper na mga kalabayan. So, in the spirit of co-creation, we would like to reach out to as many CSOs nga as possible to be part of this process of the Open Government Partnership. Yun. Yun sa na-share kanina ni Ma'am Marivic, totoo din yun. Reality din siya na there are challenges sa civil society sector, and then there's a spectrum din ng mga development civil society organizations. And we recognize that also. Kahit within Code NGO, meron din siyang spectrum din. So we have these development and justice advocates na mga NGOs. And then on the other side, there are NGOs that are supported by corporations, they are supported by local companies, ganyan. And then parang we agree we discuss and we rin have that conversations within the coalition. And then outside of the coalitions, we participate in all of these discussions on where development should be brought. So, and we hope to parang continue these conversations in the OGP and in other forums. So,
It's good that we're trying to raise these issues. But again, I just would like to point out that this is at the stage of the budget preparation of the budget process. We are still not at the budget legislation authorization, and we really would like to take advantage of this opportunity now that we have our House and Senate colleagues here that, might want to, provide some information, because I think Professor Raquiza here would really want to, explore the possibility of at what point in the budget legislation stage can the CSOs be able to participate in that process. So, I would like to throw that question to you, ma'am. Yes. Yeah. DSG boy, would you like to say something? Anyways, Deputy Secretary Boy Pangilinan of the House Department, House Administration Department. Perhaps, Sir Boy, kasi si Professor Raquiza was throwing the question back to us with regards to how they would be able to, explore possible entry points in the budget legislation process, kung paano kaya sila pwedeng pumasok, how can they be able to participate in that process.
Siguro dapat yung mga taga-APRO ang sumagot. Well, actually, before sumagot yung mga taga-APRO, actually, I just have one small question for Miss Imperial. Actually, do sa proseso kanina of involving CSOs doon sa CPA, ang proseso is you get commitment, right? And you mentioned that inuulit yung proseso hanggat hindi kayo nakakakuha ng commitment from CSOs. I'm just wondering kung talagang ang prinsipyo is hindi titigil hanggat hindi nakakakuha ng commitment. Kasi kino-compare ko lang, for example, doon sa procurement law natin. Sa procurement law, dapat may observer na mga sa CSOs doon sa mga bidding processes. But I was assigned as a member and later as a chair of the Bids and Awards Committee of the House of Representatives. Yet, in all those 5 years, once lang merong umattend na nag-observe. But requirement na mag-i-invite. So, ginagawa ng agency na mag-i-invite. That will be enough for COA to say na nag-comply yung agency doon sa requirement na yun. But doon ko nakikita na hindi rin kasi ganon yung involvement ng NGOs or CSOs pagdating sa ganon. So, relative to that, kung hindi kayo makakita or matagal lang kayo makakita, hindi mo masasacrifice yung timeliness ng pag-audit. Kasi yung sa procurement, hindi na sa sacrifice kasi basta nag-invite ka, ayun yung mag-participate, then we proceed. But how about as far as audit is concerned?
Okay, sir. So, as far as audit is concerned, especially citizen participatory audit, kung wala pong CSOs, wala pong citizen participatory audit. Kasi ang CPA, the concept of this is partnership between the COA and the CSOs. So, without the CSOs, we can still continue, but it will be a regular audit. It will not be in partnership with the CSOs, and it will not be called citizen participatory audit.
But now, you said that institutionalized na part na yung CPA nung regular audit, right?
Yes.
So, hindi lahat ng audit activities merong involvement ng CSOs.
There are times we have lots of audits. We have compliance audit, financial audit, performance audit. So in any of those audits, we can get partnership from the CSOs. So those na hindi naman, like financial, hindi sila masyadong, syempre, it's very technical. So it's the auditors. It's a regular audit. Mostly, we partner with them for compliance and performance audits. I hope I answered your question, sir. Thank you.
May gusto kong idagdag sana. Quickly lang po, kasi baka may isa rin dun pong tanong si Sir about sa participation ng civil society organizations. And indeed, yun din yung isa sa mga gusto ko sanang ipunto kanina, yung capacity for CSOs. So, in terms of yung sa Procurement Act nga, indeed, it's a very welcome na policy na i-invite yung mga CSOs para dun sa mga bids and awards committees hearings. But then again, on the other side, tatanungin ng mga taga-GPPB, nasaan yung mga civil society organizations na to? Tinatanong din po yan sa amin. At indeed, hindi po lahat ng times na in-invite yung mga CSOs, nakaka-attend sila because of certain factors. Baka busy din po sila sa kanilang mga paghanap buhay as a CSO, or either that or hindi nila masyado na-appreciate na ngayon yung mga kung para saan yung spirit ng policy na yun. In the time na, as I know, kwento lang din po umabot sa akin. Pero mga kaibigan ko po din, yung mga nasa Procurement Watch dati, meron silang network dati ng mga, ng mga sumasama sa Bids and Awards Committee. Then tinrain sila to have an appreciation of the procurement process. And also, parang paano sila makaka-participate para mas maging accountable nga yung process. Kaso nga, after that, hindi rin siguro masyado nagpatuloy because of certain factors like parang would this be a regular job for them, ganyan, or volunteer job. Kung volunteer man, ilan na lang din yung nagvo-volunteer nationwide. So, yun yung reality. Kaya, now, baka kailangan i-build ulit yung capacities ng mga CSOs for them to see importance kung bakit tayo nagpa-participate sa mga ganitong processes. Ayun po. Thank you.
Sige, Ma'am Prof.
Just to add, last na. Kasi, diba, I was saying kanina in one of the slides, nagkaroon ng ilang so-called victories in terms of budgetary increases. Pero ang the next question is, did the money really go to where it was supposed to go? Ang ending nun, dapat sa isang local community. So this is part of the budget. That's another phase, diba? That's part of the accountability. Yeah, exactly. So we were able to get a project to do budget tracking for an education project in the Visayas. And so we sent CSOs to go down to start doing a survey and a study around that. And so we talked to the, education officials, DepEd people, and they were very open and happy to answer our questions in terms of performance, but when we started asking about funds and money, it was very difficult to get data and information. In fact, at some point, parang natakot yung mga researchers natin kasi may pagka-hostile yung, not all, but there was that kind of reaction. So now that I'm thinking about this citizens participatory audit, siguro iba ang dating kung kasama natin ang COA. Yeah, to help. So that gives me ideas about, one of the ways that we can partner. Kasi what we don't want are paper victories. Nag-increase, pero because of various reasons, including budget impoundment, hindi talaga na-release yung pera, or hindi talaga natin alam if the full amount was actually released and used by the end users. So these are some of the continuing issues and challenges.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, yung tanong mo.
Actually, tatanong ko lang po sana kung how they determine the CSOs who will be involved in the process. Random lang ba yan?
No,
Is
ma'am.
that-
Ma'am, for documentation lang, yung name po at saka institution na.
Josephine Codilla po from the Senate.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am Josephine. No, it's not random. We have our set of criteria. So of course, it should be legit kasi mahirap sa fly-by-night ng mga CSOs. So of course, we do background checking, and also we request for documents from them, like SEC, if they're incorporated, or if they're a cooperative, they would give us some license for that.
Do
Those
we
things
have
po.
to volunteer po ba to be able to participate? Paano po ba yung process?
Yes, actually. And we also have the CPA information system. If there is a CSO who would like or who would volunteer with us, marami po kaming ways on how they can volunteer. For example, in our CPA website, we have there, may pa-prompt sa inyo na, volunteer with us. Ganon. So, pag nakuha namin yung name nyo, we would put it in the CPA information system so that you will be in the, what do you call this? In the list already. So, once we have another CPA, then we would look at our list. And of course, the advocacy of the CSO. Kasi syempre, naka-align siya sa audit. So yun po. Minsan, kausap lang namin one CSO member we would invite, and then, so we would see the interest, and they would send us the number, and then we will call them pag meron kaming audit. So ganun po ang sistema ng Commission on Audit. Thank you po for your interest, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Siguro before we proceed with the online question, can I just entertain one question from the body?
In relation to the question about the CPA, I congratulate you sa lahat ng
salamat
achievement
po.
ng CPA. It's a very laudable process. But my question is, we know that the Commission on Audit mandate is post-audit. So how would you, tapos ang aim ng isang objective is to prevent corruption. How can we prevent corruption kung ang isang project o infrastructure project, di ba mag-start yan sa bidding, pero hindi pwede mag-participate ang COA doon. Di ba?
Totoo
So,
po yan.
paano natin ngayon may enhance pa yung CPA to include, yung participation nila dun sa very planning pa lang, sa designing pa lang ng project, up to the implementation and the monitoring.
Ma'am Marivic.
I'm sorry, this is Marivic from
Yes, ma'am.
Marivic Castillan from the House of Representatives.
Yes, Ma'am Marivic. Yeah, that is true that the Commission on Audit is on a post-audit basis. So hindi po ang mga auditors natin ay hindi nangingialam pagdating sa proseso bago matapos ang proyekto. So even our CPAs are also on a post-audit basis. It has to finish. The project has to finish first. if this is ongoing and you like citizen participation, we go to DPWH, we go to DBM, and all the other national government agencies and ask them to enjoin the CSOs. Okay, Dino. Am I right, Dino? Okay. Because pagdating sa COA po, talaga pong pagdating sa audit, doon po tayo sa tapos na. Kasi may proseso po ang Commission on Audit. After the project completed na siya, funds were already dispersed. So that's the only time that we could see it, the accomplishment and all others that are needed for the audit. And if we have audit AOMs, audit observations, then we would write it down. It's the same thing. The same thing with CPA. Ganun din po ang procedure, post-audit din po. So it would still start with the audit entrance conference, pagkatapos mag-audit execution, and then after that, mag-i-issue ng AOMs, pareho pa rin po. So kung gusto ninyo ng citizen participation during the implementation, during the implementation mismo, then dapat dun sa management tayo. Dun tayo sa mga national government agencies. Yes po, implementing agencies.
Just to support din yung ni-raise ni Jen, indeed, audit nga is talagang tapos na yung project. But for one of the commitments na pinost noon, and I think ngayon din, na dito sa Open Government Partnership, mayroong commitment on open contracting. So itong contracting, from simula ng pag-contract ng isang project hanggang sa pagtapos. So procurement, tapos implementation, and then accountability stage. So yan ang isa sa mga possible na avenues kung saan pwedeng magkaroon ng participation tayo dun sa process na yan ng open contracting, at sinusulong yan dito sa Open Government Partnership.
Okay. Nina, I think we have some questions online.
Thank you, Sir Novel. So I'm going to read two related questions, and any of our resource persons can answer this. So this is from Sir Ramon Torres and Sir Erwin Rances from our DAP YouTube channel. So their questions are, while there are indicated wins along citizen participation in budgeting, can we fairly say that we have achieved our intent? And are we satisfied with what we have achieved so far and how these achievements relate to our desired results? And lastly, what are the concrete steps can governments take to ensure that citizen participation initiatives that we've talked about lead to tangible improvements in public accountability?
You said, I said earlier.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much for that question. Siguro I will answer first yung second question. Yes, there are a lot of reforms that we are already, kumbaga, iniisip na pwede natin gawin. Okay. As a matter of fact, even with our national expenditure program, preparation of the budget, as I mentioned to you, is already embedded in our budget preparation. But there's one thing more that we want to have it in our reforms. Isa is yung aming commitment in terms of monitoring and evaluation as far as mga big-ticket infrastructure project through our DIME, or what we call the Digital Image Monitoring and Evaluation. And that is one of the commitment of the DBM para ma-monitor natin yung mga malalaking programa ng ating gobyerno. That is through the use of technology. What is this technology? Through GPS, yung drones, or para ma-monitor. And that is, we are asking our citizens to actively participate in that process. Hopefully, that is part of the commitment. So, pag na-launch na po yan, mamomonitor na po ng mga ahensya kung makikita nila before, during, and even after the implementation of that project. Para isa yon, maiwasan natin nga yung partly the corruption. Okay. Pangalawa po is as far as reform is concerned, tinitingnan na po namin to pass what we call the yung aming reform program as far as having an enactment of a law, budget modernization program. Okay, so that's in that particular program or proposed bill. There you can have what we call the citizens' participation. I just want to get it, parang di ako magkamali. Okay. Actually, nakalagay po doon, section 56, I think, of the provision that we are incorporating that as citizens' participations in the budget process. So, yun po yung isang mga reforma na tinitignan namin so that we can consolidate all of these efforts that we are doing and implement it with the enactment of the law. So I guess it's a call or a challenge that for us because we have to prepare this. But of course, at the end of the day, sino mag-approve po nito? The Congress. So we are also calling on your support to have this pass, or probably with our legislator being you as some of your staff of the legislators. So, yun ang inaano namin to really push for this bill to pass so that we can support our CSOs or what we call the citizens' participation nationwide. And of course, the OGP remains to be there, being institutionalized. We have created this avenue, this platform, wherein citizens can always be, engaged with our advocacy that we are doing right now. We are moving to different provinces, cities, and even the regions to have this OGPNAS, we call it, Open Government PNAS, promoting and having this executive order be as an advocacy to promote the open government partnership as a good governance in terms of transparency, accountability, and citizens' participation. So ito po yung mga reforms that we are doing. And hopefully, with the local program, OGP local program, internationally, yung OGP local, we are so partnering with the DILG, looking forward into how we'll localize this program, the Open Government Partnership, wherein the citizens can actively participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Asik Rolly. Other members of the,
Sir.
would like to weigh in?
Hopefully this is my last words. I would like also to take this opportunity because the Revised Government Auditing and the Revised Government Auditing Act, or House Bill number 9674, has already been on the third and final reading last December 12, 2023 in the House of Representatives. So it's going to go up to the, yes. Yay! Salamat po. Revised Government Auditing Act. We are revising the State Audit Code. So, and in the revision, the citizen participation is already included. So please po, sana naman mabigyan nyo ng kaukulang pansin para maipasa. Yes, ma'am? Wala pang counter.
Just to let you know lang, okay. Ang latest version po ng Progressive Budgeting for Better and Modernized Governance Bill was already transmitted to the Senate with Senator Angara and Congressman Lizalde last May 26. That was last year pa, pero hoping that we can have this passed during this Congress. Thank you.
Before the election. Any more questions from the floor? The Senate Economic Planning Office has volunteered to ask a question. Yes, sir? Your name and your institution?
Hello, good morning. Good afternoon na po pala. Sir Tapan po from the Senate Economic Planning Office. First, my question is, how much budget is being spent for OGP at saka yung sa CPA, and whether, I know that there are success stories, but in the conduct of the CPAs, meron po ba kayang nakita kayo na hindi rin naging successful in terms of the projects that were funded, in terms of the CPAs that were conducted? And with regard dun sa CPA, masasama din po ba dun sa mga NGOs or CSOs dun sa budget proposal, dun sa bill na binabanggit ninyo? Thank you.
Okay, as to the budget po ng OGP, being the chair and the secretariat of the Open Government Partnership, the PHOGP, mayroon po kami naka-allocate na budget in terms of conduct of our conduct of meetings of the the steering committee, the conduct of our Open Government Partnership, Open OGP NAS, conduct of advocacy campaign. We have also, kumbaga, put on a budget as far as, kasi we're creating right now a PMO or project management office, so that given the institutionalization of the PHOGP, we can now, kumbaga, matulungan on how we can implement this PHOGP. So, ganun po siya. But of course, aside from that regular program that we have right now, we're also putting a budget for our, because as I mentioned to you, we are hosting a regional, Asia-Pacific regional meeting next year. So you will see that there's an increase in budget as far as, that is specifically for OGP for the DBM because of this conduct of the Open OGP regional meeting in the Philippines. So, basically po a small amount that is for the steering committee and the PMO. And of course, support to our CSOs, as mentioned.
Okay, in response to your question, sir, regarding the budgeting on CPA, sa totoo lang po, magiging honest na po ang Commission on Audit. Talaga pong milyon ang ginagastos namin. Kasi, even if it's, we are anchoring on volunteerism, but, of course, kawawa naman yung mga CSOs natin if you do not give them at least allowances, meal allowance and transportation allowance for every audit na engagement. So this comes in a daily basis every time nandoon sila and kasama namin sila. So milyon po ang ginagastos ng Commission on Audit on this. Second question, kung meron po bang unsuccessful na mga CPAs? Meron po. At katulad nga ng biglang nawawala in the middle of the audit, meron po kaming mga ganong scenario. Pero, dinediretso po namin yan as a regular audit. Hindi na siya CPA. Ganun po talaga. Hindi naman lahat successful. But most of the time, successful po kami.
Yes, Edie, Andino.
I want to add din dun sa previous question about yung mga parang outcomes din, no? And then in relation to parang where we invest these parang activities na where we can participate, ang tanong kanina was, have we achieved some certain outcomes in these investments? And I think we have a long way to go. While we have these successes, laudable na efforts. In fact, yung grassroots participatory budgeting is also one of the things na very laudable, or yung tinatawag natin noon na bottom-up budgeting. Hanggang ngayon, meron pa rin corruption. So, hindi natin din yun may iwasan. Reality din po siya. So, we have a long way to go in terms of instilling these practices and then making this into norm na dun sa government. Nung last 2 weeks ago, we have the Open Government Week. It's an annual event for Open Government Partnership in every country. Tapos, dito sa Philippines, we invite one of the session organizers was the DILG, and one of the panelist was Mayor Magalong, and he was really vocal about what's happening inside sa in terms of yung sa corruption. So pagka may maririnig kaming kwento na ganun, we were wondering paano pa kaya to ma-address. Pero that also parang emboldens us to be still part of the process, like open government partnership. And still, kasi may space na ganito, so might as well for non-government actors maximize this space para ma-achieve natin yung outcome na yung corruption talaga ay ma-curb or wala talaga. Thank you.
Sige, Asek Rolly din si Prof.
I heard from ED Dino about the grassroots participatory budgeting, wherein that was many years ago. But this time, we revitalized that, or even, kumbaga, resurrect, wherein still the citizens can participate, lalo na sa local government, wherein we have 1 billion funding for the what we call support and assistance fund to LUs, support and assistance through participatory budgeting. So, mayroon po tayo, through this lump sum funds or local government support fund, we have identified 70 LGUs that will be determined already based on the need as far as yung water systems and sanitation. So, through this, through ang LGUs together with the CSOs will have to identify kung ano saan ang programa at saan ilalagay po yung water system na yan. So this is one of the also initiatives as far as DBM is concerned, as far together with the DILG in terms of having this participatory budgeting in the process through the LGUs.
Prof. Raquiza.
Thank you. So sabi nga na may gains because somehow citizens groups are able to influence budgetary increases for social spending. But you know, we would want to institutionalize that, not just in the budget reform bill, which is of course a fantastic, but sana talaga yung batas, no, ma-enact into law. And it's been several years already, several congresses, hindi mapasa-pasa. So I think that we need more work in terms of trying to influence our legislators to be more amenable to passing such a law. So that's one. And then number two, even if the law is passed, and we're able to get a law that, you know, really gets NGAs and legislators to get citizens to participate, we don't want it naman to be done on a compliance basis. We want it to go beyond compliance. Talagang there's real, meaningful, substantive engagement na talagang nag-uusap, putting really issues on the table. Hindi lang checklist, okay, nag-consultation na, check. Diba? We don't want nominal but substantive compliance from a public governance perspective. And to be able to do that requires capacity building. Dapat siguro, that's part of means of implementation. We pass the law, that's step one. Step two is, how do we build the capacity of the national government and local government to really undertake citizens' engagement? Paano ba talaga makisalimuha? Hindi yan simple. These are not to be taken for granted assumptions. Because there are ways and ways of reaching out, talking to socially excluded groups, talking to indigenous peoples, talking to persons with disabilities, pati kami sa CSOs. Mali-mali minsan kami dyan, iba pala ang protocol pagkausap ang persons with disabilities. Even just identifying the venue matters. Kasi kung naka-wheelchair yan, at ang meeting nasa third floor, paano naman sila? Hindi inclusive yung meeting. So these are ways by which we sensitize ourselves. If we want substantive and meaningful participation, we must be clear about the needs of the sectors we want to engage. So pati kami, nagiging learning process yan sa amin. Saan ang venue, pag senior citizens, may kanya-kanya yan And then pati kami sa CSOs, we need, as we were saying, we need more training on how to read the budget, how to discuss this intelligently. Ang daming domains yan. May special purpose funds, pati ang program funds. It's a huge world. And a lot of the, question mark and gray areas are in the special purpose funds. So that in itself is a big problem that we need to, exactly. But if we can work together and with courage, finally, if we really want to engage our CSOs, lalo na ngayon, alam mo, pamasahe pa lang, hirap na kami. Sa totoo lang, I'm a faculty member, so kaya ko. Maraming CSOs, kasi nga dahil sa shrinking space and shrinking resources, let's not assume may pamasahe sila. So, tama yung ginagawa ninyo, ng COA. Kailangan siguro din talaga minsan, tignan din natin, yung madaming CSOs and people's orgs, we will need that kind of support para lang makapag-engage. So that's welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. I know we had a lot more topics, issues to cover, but for time management purposes...
Sir Nobel, quick small observation lang po regarding dun sa OGP-PH Steering Committee. Happy po kami na part yung Senate, but who represents there in the Senate? Tsaka parang wala po atang House counterpart. Thank you.
That was a comment or that was a question to... Comment ba yun? For info. But if you want to weigh in,
Okay. Yes, actually, we engaged when we responded, we wrote a letter to the, sa ating mga leaders as far as both Senate and the Congress. So yes, so what we have considered, given the fact that 10 lang po kasi ang membership ng steering com. So, and we want to include both the 3 branches of government. So, na-limit po. So, kasama po ang Supreme Court, ang Legislative, which is the Senate, and of course, sa Executive. So, at the same time, even our ULAP, kasi ULAP po is a league, so kasama po sila doon, as part of the government. So, ganun po ang nangyari dyan. Plus, of course, yung determination po din ng ating mga member of the steering com is based on the, right now, the current development issues and concerns. So, ganun po ang nangyari doon. Thank you.
I know we would like to ask more questions, but at this point, we would like to close this session, and we would like to ask our resource persons their final parting words. Perhaps siguro we can start with ED Sandino then, moving forward.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity to share my thoughts on the building trust and participation in the budgeting process. Bilang nahasa din po dito sa process nito since time na nag-start ako sa Code NGO 2009 until present, it's very close to my heart yung advocacy na to. Kaya kahit na iilan lang tayo nakakaintindi nito, I would really like to see more and more people understand this importance of being able to participate in the process from preparation down to accountability. And hindi din biro kasi kung mag-weigh in yung mga leaders and members of the local communities. Kasi ito talaga yung mahalaga kung ano yung kanilang mga saloobin. At ito yung aming mandato din sa CSOs na i-elevate yung at maging voice para sa kanila. Thank you po.
As for me, I'm really very happy to share with you the COA's experience on CPA, and I am truly overwhelmed of the interest of the whole audience regarding citizen participatory audit. So thank you very much for actively listening to my lecture this morning. And for my final words, nauna na po kanina, requesting for support for the revision of our state audit code. Maraming salamat po.
All right, so thank you. All right, so as far as the DBM being the secretariat at the same time chair of the Philippine Open Government Partnership, just want to let you know that we have this avenue, this platform that we can engage citizens, not only the CSOs, but also you, the national government agencies, and even from the legislative branch, to really work together as far as practicing the value of open governance, which is transparency, accountability, and citizens' participation. Because sabi nga nila, as the topic, basically the topic of this open forum is basically building trust. So you can trust that the PHOGP is really working hard for us to have that trust. Sabi nga is not only coming from the citizens, but also from the government. So both ways, we can develop this trust between and among the citizens and the government. So we'll continue. Actually, natutuwa po kami that you have invited us. As a matter of fact, sabi nga is we need some sort of capacity building, advocacy as far as what we have or what we are doing. So we need this kind of forum. As I mentioned, that OGP is a platform, and this is also one of the platform. And thank you for inviting us and hearing from you. I think we are more motivated to pursue what we have started, the Philippine Open Government Partnership. Thank you.
Maraming salamat sa DAP. Me and the rest of my co-speakers, opportunity to share our ideas and experiences with you. For sure, I learned a lot from everyone. I thank you for listening and for participating in the discussion. I think the meat of the proof of the pudding is in the eating. In the 20th Congress, kita-kita tayo. Pagtulungan natin yung mga advocacies natin. Maraming salamat.
So before I turn it over to our host, Nina, can I just ask our body to give our resource persons a resounding round of applause? Thank you, ma'am, sir, for this opportunity. So I turn it over to Nina for the next part of the program.
Thank you, Edie Bangsal. So we indeed had a very insightful discussion on this topic. Now, may we ask everyone to please key in your key takeaway for this lecture. So you can find the QR code on the program on your table. So kindly scan it or click the link on your Viber group communities. Please be reminded that only put one word per entry only, so we can flash your key takeaways for the second Thursday talks. So I hope all of you can access online our Menti link. Our CBILLS program team is currently preparing the word cloud containing all of your key takeaways. Okay. So while everyone is accessing the Menti, here are the initial words that came up. So we have accountability, transparency, and participation. So without further ado, I would like to call again our esteemed moderator, Sir Novel, for the synthesis of today's discussion.
Ako na ba? I won't be long in the synthesis, but again, nakita nyo naman sa nung flash, I think the key terms there is building trust. I think from Dr. Raquiza to Asik Rodi, to Ms. Jen, to Edie Sandino, paulit-ulit nilang ini-emphasize yung trust, public trust. But again, it's also important to emphasize that trust is a two-way street. Government should be able to build that trust for stakeholders to be able to participate in the building process, in the budget process, as well as, of course, civil society should also show some level of competence for them to be an effective partner in this budget process. And again, kasi kami from Congress, we are always looking at the lens of the principles of public expenditure management or public financial management, that one, we should be spending within your means. Two, we should be spending on the right priorities. And three, spending with measurable results. So, I guess only when there is an effective and meaningful participation from key stakeholders that we will be able to achieve this desired fiscal outcomes. I think government alone will not be enough for this particular, especially that we are coming from the effects of pandemic, and we're trying to build and recover from this economic shock. And I hope that in the next round, because we really are also looking at the budget very closely, especially with the targets of the MTFF, of course, and whether or not, kasi there are external risks, not only domestic risks. We are also looking at, of course, the risk of continuing inflationary pressure. Parang sinabi ni Prof. Raquiza kanina about rice prices. These are the things that would really impact on our budget process, and unless we are able to, participate effectively in this discussion, maganda, we will be able to steer this discussion at the right direction. So, again, I would like to thank our resource persons as well as our participants for this forum, and we hope that this will not be the last time, and I'm very sure I will tell this with frankness and with all honesty, because in the next few days, in the next few weeks, we will be receiving the budget, the NEP, in Congress. So I will say good luck to us in this process, and hopefully we will be able to do our part in coming up with a very effective budget. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sir Novel. Before we formally close our lecture today, we would like to call on the SG Pangilinan to give our tokens of appreciation to our resource persons and moderators. And for our resource person, you may stand and accept our tokens. And then we'll have a photo opportunity po. So again, thank you, Dr. Raquiza, our Session 1 speaker. Asek Toledo, one of our speakers for the case study. And then, of course, Ms. Imperial from COA for the Citizen Participatory Audit session. Our reactor from the NGO, E.D. Soleman. And of course, our moderator and your colleague at the House of Representatives, we have E.D. Bangsal. So let's have photo op with the SG Pangilinan. So on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Ayan. Again, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. You may now take your seats again on stage. So as you all know, last April 4, during our first installment of the Thursday Talks lecture series, we also had the opening ceremony where we launched the 2023 CBILLS annual report. And now we are pleased to inform everyone that our report is now available online at the CBILLS.dap.edu.ph. So you can access the content of our 2023 CBILLS accomplishments and policy advocacy initiatives that we've done in the past year. And of course, I hope that you are as thrilled as we are in presenting the CBILLS learning journey of our previous batch. And we also can't wait to document the learning journey of this year's CBILLS scholars. And that will be the end of our lecture 2. And this is your host saying thank you to everyone for participation, and thank you to our colleagues at the Development Academy of the Philippines, the Senate and House of Representatives for facilitating the transportation of the scholars today, and of course, our DAP YouTube live viewers who stayed with us until past noon. So again, thank you and stay safe, everyone.